Okay, good morning. Morning, everyone. Good morning, Sir Punta.
Morning, ma'am.
So, welcome sa ating review for today. And we are finally done with animal science, and hopefully we can have more time para ma-review back ang ating animal science kasi lisod ba siya? Ay, ba nag-comment lisod kasi daw. And sir? Wala sa lesson? So, inalap ko na siya, John.
Lang, ma'am.
General kayo, which is kanang kung mamili mo reviewer, if you are still buying others na may mga review materials, choose yung na ay capacity na mag 100 like kakuan na mo sa BSUs, CLSU, and UPLB. Kasi most of the questionnaires are from them. Kasi they have the required na more than 100 na mga students. So, and also USM. Most of our top boards are from USM. And hoping from you, no? One of you here someday. So, at saka sa mga online dyan. Dagan kayong mga bright diri sa inyo na konting switch lang. No? In fact, si Sir Marlon, no? Bright kayo tanawon kinakakuan. Genius na na. Pero bright din si Sir Marlon. Di ba gikan nga kuan Israel Pod? Dili. Wala. Katorang sa Maya. Si kuan na dito sige to katong hiker. Ganun to. Sige to siya. Pero ang mga bago karon kan si Pod. So anyway, let me move through our some things before we proceed. Although sa una kasi dito na ako may edit. Leia na siya, license for examination for agriculture, but now Ale. Agriculture examination. Examination. Ano? Ale, license for exam. Ale, agriculture is licensure examination. So, number one, kailangan aim high. Kasi ako talaga naturally ambitious sa jud ko, no? Makita mo sa dagway. Not just to pass, but to really have the 100%, no? Let us be considerate with one another, whether asa man tagikan ng bukira, no? We should also help one another to pass. 100% passing, and also to not only to pass but to top. Minus na kagab, ha? Joke lang. So aim high, like no, ang example din ako tayo, kasi mostly sa maging friends na ako is top achiever. Kasi dili good top achiever gud nga as in pinaka-bright good, no? But mostly ang mga friend na ako, I have one, di ba Carlo? Si Dr. Leslie Ubaco, wherever she's now, bitaw mo radyo gano'n. Nasa sa Samoa, kasi I came from Samoa, and we both came from University of Southeastern Philippines. So, kanang pareho tayo may, maski di ni pareho attitude, no? Baldita na kahit siya sa kuha. Pero magka-vibes ni in terms sa kanang mga achievements, and also kanang kung pareha ko na ng kuan, gusto ka na kay kanang 5 ka uyab, mag-graduate mo, diba? Achieve that. Joke lang na example. Or to really pass the board exam, no? One take lang. No? But if you fall down, pag if ever, and hopefully not, so tanang swerte sa kalibutan ato ng pangitao. No? Just don't give up. No? And we're really making sure na you can do it. That's why we start ahead of time. In fact, I would like to acknowledge wala man dali karon si Sir JP, no, si John Paul, which was my former student before and now my personal advisor. Charot. He's taking low code, no? But then naglibog siya, wala pa siya. So syempre no, di pwede madugang tanan. So the only limit we have actually is time, no? But as to the possibilities and to the possibilities and achievements that we could, wala dyan talaga yung limit. Diba, Sir Gab? So, si Sir Gab talaga ang best example na kanang sa pagana kanang positive tayo, no? And I could say na, di ba mag-top ka, Sir Gab? No? And di ba, nag-dream ka na maging professor someday? Oh, see? Di ba? O, mag-top siya, bahala din na tinuod ba? Basta yes lang ng yes, no? Malay mo matinuod di ay, di ba? Oo. So, but matinuod jud na siya kasi it's not impossible na maging professor ka mo tanan, no? If you will only pursue. So, and there's no other way to pass the exam than to review talaga and to study. I know studying is hard and reviewing is boring and everything, but kanimang good the board exam, it's a national standard in the Philippines. Although it's not even kada country, no, around the globe na ay kanya-kanyang standards. And in fact, kahit graduate na ta dire, pag-abot mo US, pag-abot mo og Canada, Australia, na yun na sila sariling educational system na nila dawaton. That's why ang Philippines ning adapt og ASEAN. So nanatay K-12 and which is also medyo level na siya sa ubang international school. So when you pass the licensure exam, so it means na competitive jud mo, no? Around not only the Philippines but also in the ASEAN region. And disiplina lang jud kasi kung masigira tag ag-ulan ganina, no, na-midge tulog pa. Kanya ako magpadala pa sa atong gibate. So wala jud. Sa disiplinahan. Total pareha garang mabuntis ka, 'di ba? Ma'am Bim, isa pa mong anak. Dugangan nato na. Dili sa mahal ang gas. Dili na bugas ang mahal ang gas na. So, kasi ako, 3 pa lang akong anak. No? Isa pa akong bana. So, joke lang. So, discipline yun siya. Kasi, for the, pila kay months, start ka by July? 4 to 5 months. But that's only 22 sessions. Madagdagan pa yun na kung those who are willing to go back to really re-exam and re-exam. Kasi it's only a matter of practice. Kasi di ba yung sila na practice will make you perfect. But nobody's perfect. So why practice? Diba? Joke lang po na. So, isa magka-tip is kanang for me, no, na-assure na ako, although overconfident, mamugo. Like mo, apil ko og ganang search sa una, no, mas ginawa ko na taog. Hoy, in fairness, best in friendship kaya ako. Mura dyan ko kanang beauty title siya, no? Apil bitaw siya sa beauty title. Diba? Diba, Miss Bim, ang sa kanis, kuan, Davao? Wow! Bahala na ba sa mutya, no? So anyway, yeah. And lastly, kailangan we should prepare not only mentally or intellectually but also psychologically and physically. Kailangan you eat healthy foods and of course, no, by the divine providence, whoever is your God, no, let us hold on to it. Kasi if you believe, then it's possible. And sometimes, no, there is, kung halimbawa, shaky na yung relationship, ayaw sa jud bulagi. Joke kami tao. No, kailangan inspired jud ka. Kasi ay, bulaga na lang din. So, wala kayo uyab karon. So, mas nice actually ang walay uyab, no? Ay, labat ang ulo. Personally lang, ha? Joke lang. Kasi na mga married dere. O mga pinakagwapa na gwapo kasi. Taken na sila. So, suko na dyan na puntal. Sige lang, no? But just don't give up. So, dagan na kayo ko ka ng, yaw-yaw. Wait lang. Pangit sa ko. Ha? Kadaghan ay gab. Ang resulta na wala mabilin. Okay, so ang una natong topic, what was that? Our first topic. By the way, regarding sa video recording, dili kasi siya ma-access mo. Wala pa na ako na-turn. I-turn on naman ako ang sharing, but kailangan yung siguro siya request bago siya ma-access. But I will try to upload na lang sa YouTube para accessible kayo siya. So our first topic will be history and classification of agricultural crops, then crop production status and statistics, and crop anatomy and physiology. So this actually covers crop science 1 and 2. So alam nyo, all of you, have you taken up crop science 1 and 2? Kasi diba, may iba ding mga major dito na ano. So sa history of crop science, let's start with agriculture branches. And then, hopefully, before tamag-ed, makamemorize ta, kasi classification, makamemorize ta sa ato ang ang sa pilay? Ang average na mata. Oo, sa Leia before. Hindi pa na siya. Leia. So, actually, ang aim na ako is talaga mag-top sa board. So, kasi agricultural education course ko, so meron kami education units. And, kaso, wala di ko nag-top, no? 82% lang ako ang, average. So, nag-take na ko agriculture na board. Kasi, professional teachers man po. Para mag-top jud ko, wala gyapon ko nag-top sa mag-engineering na po ko. Yung dangan na nako akong ka-addict, no? Joke lang bitaw. Diba? So, kung kaya gani sa uban, unsa may ko ano? Ha? Gani. Hi, sir. Asa ba gikan, sir? Atoril lang. Sorry ha, kay naka-Yusef pa ganyan siya. Wala na ako na-edit kagabi. Hanap ako. Okay, so when I speak of agriculture, really part of the main science, which is biology. And when we say biology, it's the study of
Life.
a short study of life, no? So it both deals with plant animal organisms and life processes. So those are basic na dapat alam na natin. And when I say zoology bitaw na siya. Pero ang other, ano pa rin, pronunciation, zoology. So, it's the study of animals, no? And botany, of course, is the study of. So, in agriculture, which is basically under biology and under both botany and zoology, so when we speak of agriculture, it is both an art and a science. Kasi nga, of course, alam na niyo yan, di ba? Kasi art, we use of creative ideas and innovation. And science because it involves, yes, systematic methods, no? And of course, we raise plants and animals under the management of man. Alam nga naman robotics, no? But now, diba, in the future, we use under the management of humanity pa din. And yeah, so here as an art, but mostly this is just to remind us of the coverage of agriculture. Kasi who knows, no? This could be one of the questions in the board exam. So, but the key is that kanang na-understand ninyo ang question and na-understand ninyo kung unsay agriculture, unsay art, and unsay science. Okay. So far wala man kang Tagalog or na ano no na participant kasi naapoy nagka-questions before ng mga gikan sila Manila and gusto sila mag-online and they're asking if we are going to deliver it para as Tagalog ba kasi Bisaya ta diba? Bisaya ba to tanan dere? Na ay Tagalog. Si Bim lang ang kuan, foreigner. So, no, so ayun. So, ingon ko English, no? Siguro itong wala ni Dayon. Joke na po na ha. So, there are two branches under agriculture. We have crop, of course, and animals. So, both botany and zoology pa din. But, it's very, technical term, crop production, of course, for the cultivation of crops. And under crop production, we have a lot of, actually, we have two disciplines, which is agronomy and horticulture. So when we say agronomy, sometimes kasi pangutana kung what is agronomy or where does what are the root words of agronomy. So it's a Greek word from agros, meaning field, and nomos, of course, management. So that's why nomi or nomos is management. So it's the art and science again of field production, of field crop production and management. So for horticulture, pareho na ni silang duha or lahi? They are actually both, no? They are both the same, and they are also different. No, sa una naman ko major in crops and agronomy. Karon, the new curriculum of PSA is crop production na and animal science. No, kasi the agronomy and horticulture are two different areas na they are actually complement each other, encompasses. So sa una, mag-away pa ang mga agronomy and horticulture major, no? Ano, nag-study ka of corn nga, pa-agronomy naman na, nag-study ka rice nga, horticulture man ka, diba? So, but there is no strict talaga difference between the two. Kasi, sometimes ang corn, kung i-harvest nimo siya o kanang baby corn pa lang, no, for vegetables or kanang sweet corn, di ba? Kanang pang snack na to. So that's still under horticulture. No? Like coconut, that's agronomy, fruit tree, but plantation crops, agronomy siya. But kung i-harvest nimo siya as kanang buko, no, it's under horticulture. So actually, arbitrary lang ang ilang difference. Not really strict, not scientific. No, it's philosophical. No, it can change at any time. So when we speak of horticulture, sometimes it is defined as the raising of crops in the nursery before grown in the field. But that's not the only definition. But it came from the Latin word. So agronomy, remember, Greek word na siya. Pag hortus, Latin word din siya. So how would you remember na agronomy is a Greek word? So since ang agronomy na siya G, so remember na ang G is a Greek, G for Greek word. So inana ko sometimes mag-memorize, no? And the Latin word hortus is, of course, ano may Latin? So Latin. So meaning garden and cultura means cultivation. So therefore, garden, and sa unang panahon kasi, ang ilang concept sa garden is fruits, vegetables, and flowers. So this includes the study of fruits, which is pomology, the study of vegetables, floriculture, and the study of flowers, floriculture. And the difference of the three, ilan naman kayo, di ba? So, kung floriculture, it's flowers, di ba? So, duha na lang ka mamili, olericulture and pomology. So, dali na po na siya memorize. So, di na mo kailangan ng code. So, it is basically also not only growing nursery, in the nursery, but also growing field grass such as cotton, wheat, tobacco, corn, and soybeans. That's supposed to be agriculture. Nang sa din ako. Yeah, agronomy. I mean, agronomy pala. So, agronomy is growing field grass like the following again. And horticulture is has been used in Latin, as I have said kanina, hortus cultura, and it was found out in literature mga 1600s pa. So dugay, actually ang pinakaunang words sa agriculture are horticulture. Kasi mga 1600s pa siya. And it means cultivated garden or culture of garden plants. So that includes, as the years pass by, that includes growing, processing, marketing fruits, vegetables, ornamental plants. So horticulture is also so wide that it includes a lot of areas, no, including, okay, adjust daw ko. Layo siguro or ay no, wrong. So anyway, it doesn't only include olericulture, pomology, and floriculture. Okay. Then sa baba. And also viticulture. When you say viticulture, those are grapes or vines. So again, ano yung five branches ng horticulture? Study of fruits, study of vegetables, study of flowers, and study of grapes and vines. Patraday, sorry. Pero nakakasinay, 5 branches ng horticulture, na po na siya, dili daghan kay area, no, but ikalima na is post-harvest. handling. But as I have said, it's not really fixed or scientific, but arbitrary lang siya. So this also includes greenhouse management, and of course, when we say greenhouse, be careful of using the greenhouse kasi ang greenhouse, parehas siya sa greenhouse na to dere, but ang use niya is in other countries is different. Pampainit kasi siya. So it's made of plastic na para even winter or even cold, pwede, pag mainit kasi ang temperature at saka ang weather, the more nga mag-grow ang plants. So that's why they use greenhouse for the growing of plants. But then, kung mag-greenhouse ka dere, what will happen in the Philippines, sa tropical countries like Philippines? Init ra kaayo. No? So, usually, ang greenhouse sa ubang country mo na itong greenhouse. And then, ang mga engineer maglibog, nag-order ka greenhouse, but then, dili ninyo magamit. Kasi mamatay man, pati ikaw sunog. Tingin sulod dito. So sa mga nursery nato, greenhouse na siya. No? Although we actually refer the same, but different setting lang. Kaya greenhouse usually ang tawag sa ubang country, pero sa tua, greenhouse dapat na siya. But that another thing is that it can be used interchangeably. No? Kasi we mean the same thing, but the different weather and situation. And under horticulture then yung turf grass management. We have students na nag-work sa mga si Sir Nunito. The turf ba siya? Ay sa sagingan din siya kasi kung sa kanang goal ay sa Sir Andy. Golf naman. Golf. And one of their reports about turf management. So that's under horticulture. And this includes turf grasses, yung ating mga Bermuda grass, yung ating mga pang turf na grass, no? In the urban naman, no? Home, municipal, commercial lawns, and everywhere in the highway. So paglabay na ako ganin Bonnie, naka-remember na gyud ko. Maglibog ko lang tulo eh. Bonnie ka nang nice kay inyo hang flower sa center sa Panabo. Talabay mo Panabo. Unsa to nga bulak Bonnie? Taga Panabo ka? Dili sa center aisle. Ay, wala kita. Pink, purple something. Marag sila tulips. Dili po siya grasses family pero nice kayo siya, itapot mo siya. Ano nakalabay kag tagom? Ay, Panabo? Tato ka? Asa na inyo? Asa na? Dato. So, dali ka nag-agi. And also, of course, landscape horticulture. No? Landscaping or the art of design and the principles of placing care of plants into a landscape. So, kinsa sa inyo naka-take up o ganang kasi iba-iba magud ato ang generation, iba-iba po atong curriculum. Nag-change ang curriculum and right now ang ilahang curriculum is Craft Science 1, which is principles of craft, principles and methods, and then ang Craft Science 2 nila is horticulture. So, kinsay naka-try og landscaping sa inyo? Wow. Ha? Dere-dere? And also as a subject, na may landscaping subject before or wala? O sige, Sir JP. So, unsan tong principles of design? Maninuod ba ka, ma'am? so, of course, no, sa landscaping, it includes yung principles of landscape. And the principle of landscape have also principles of design. Like, for example, yung elements balance is one of the principles of design. There are only 6 principles, no? And hopefully, ato nang i-review. Hopefully lang. And elements of design, of course, we have color, line, texture. Isang Bonnie? Oh, brighten ni Bonnie. Oh, focal point. Oh, diba? Kasi natulin yung si Sir JP. Ma'am Nora. Ika si Sir JP mong landscape. So, and interior scaping. That's why also when you go to other countries like kung mag-Canada na mo Bim, diba? Canada. Ganun, no? Ang horticulture sa ilahan dito is more on horticulture sila than agronomy. No? Kasi mas daghan sila og landscape siguro dako kasi ang Canada. Ang Australia is iba din. So interior scaping naman, it's of course the opposite of landscaping, no? Kasi indoor siya. But usually interior scaping is under landscaping pa din. And we also have the so-called horticultural therapy. No. Therapeutic. Kalimot ko ka na. Actually, na ay mga areas of study from other countries as well. And when I was also in the UPLB, na therapeutic horticulture ang tawag. No? Therapeutic horticulture. So, use ng mga plants, of course, to treat diseases and also illness. No? Although dili gina siya kasi kung dili man gud siya approved by FDA and medical science, daghan na procedure. Like when you remember how they developed the vaccine, our vaccine, kapag pinagdituro sa to, diba? It takes time, even 10 to 20 years. So with horticultural therapy, usually like kuan kanang ginainom ni Sir JP karon pito-pito. Unsay nakabutang dito? No therapeutic claims. No? Kasi although mura na siya supplement ba, food supplement. But as a horticulturist, you believe that actually food are our kanang natural medicine na. So you choose the right food para it will not only nourish you but also treat you, no, in your medicine ninyo, no? Like tanduay, di ba? Natural. Kuanday pito-pito daw ang ginamin. Pero katila na mo pito-pito. Mura siya tanduay gyapon, no? Ha? Ay wala pa kay nagtanduay din. Mo kaning apil og ano. Nabe mong mga ex classmate ba? Classmate. Okay, and also related in agriculture are the different sciences, no? So science kasi geography is also soil science under geography, no? And but then it is very important in agriculture, chemistry as well, biochemistry. So ano kaibahan ng chemistry sa biochemistry? Of course, the chemistry is so general, no? Both organic and inorganic. But for biochemistry, it's the study of the chemistry of the biological system. So very specific siya sa life processes. And of course, mathematics, no, kasi we will study statistics, and statistics is under mathematics. And physics, plant pathology, plant physiology, entomology, the study of economics, genetics, and agricultural engineering. So according to Garfield, agriculture is the head of all civilization and the mother of all industries. So without agriculture, wala. Kasi wala kang tayo pagkaon. Unsa day mag-produce sa itong pagkaon? Mga robots, animals. No? We are animals, so we depend our food sa ating tanim, and we have to cultivate it. Diba? Kasi sa una, pwede na ta atong katong tribo ninyo, wala na pala akong binuangan na rin. Ay ka na ikaw, Gab. Kuan ka, native ka sa Samal? Dito dyan ka, sama manugo ang tawag sa imo. Sayo daw. Pero guys, kuan day ka, sama. Sumapil kag sayo karon sa kuan, kadayawan. Pili na kasi entry ang SIC. Sige, sample daw para kadayawan namin daan. Wala ko makakita ng sayaw ka ko. Pakantahon na lang ka, ayaw na ko kasayawan. So if you have questions along the way, you can ask questions. So actually, I have here, you have question, na-adequate ka ng candy, palihog ko distribute. Para mga tukan mo, hindi mo katong. Gani kung mag-panel defense gani, ang isa ka tip gani is, serva ni mo pulburon, no? Matukan. Ikaw, Jodvin, ha? Ako ba yan mong panel? So, katong mga nasa online, Ma'am Belinda, if you have questions, Sir Ron, madungog ba siguro tamo?
Yes, ma'am.
I-try sa dako akong kuan, ha? Ako ang sana, Oli.
Hi, it's Mr. Anderson, and in this podcast, I'm going to take you on a tour of the cell. We're going to talk about the different types of cells and then how the structures inside a cell with their functions.
Saan ba yung
First
audio,
thing
no?
that we need to talk about is why cells are small. The reason cells are small is the material moves into a cell through a process called diffusion. So oxygen gets in there, and carbon dioxide is going to move out the same.
Uy, palakpakan na to si Dre.
So what we can do is we can actually make that volume the same, but we can increase the surface area. And now the distance the material has to move is actually relatively small. And you also might think to yourself, well, why are they infinitely small? Why are they really, really tiny? Well, the reason why is that the material inside a cell, the information inside the cell, like the DNA and the machinery of the cell, has to be able to fit inside the cell. And so there's like a perfect sweet spot in size for all the different types of cells that we have. Another thing I want to talk about.
Gitay lang ka na ko, ha? So I actually have here a handout on the different by Ben that I have. So kasi ano na siya kanang naka-copyright na word. So, although dili ka niya ako i-discuss ha, but this will be distributed to you as in your handouts. So, we have here the different botanical classification. So, paano, you remember paano classify botanically. So that's under classification. Pero in terms of one kasi, nakalimot din kong download ang sa history of agriculture. But can we skip na lang muna no sa after na lang kasi pangitaunan pa na ako. Dagan kay files through the years. Charot. So, and also the different classification. Based on sa kanilang family names. Okay. Ngano ganing, why do we have to study scientific names? Yes, ma'am. Kasi IB. No. Ano mas parang mga ka, sir? Kuan mo, ayab mo? Classmate. Sa ano isa. Pero married daw. Okay. Sige, Marites Bim. So, yeah, that's true, no? Although it's very hard kasi mostly naka-Latin word siya, no? And with the last letter na mapansin ninyo, ang last letter, unsa na siya? Oh, unsa man na siya stands for? Ha? Si Carolus Linnaeus na siya who actually the one, he is the botanist na mostly naka-discover and nag-name sa most sa mga tanom. No, so ito lahat under family Compositae, Cruciferae, Graminae, Cruciferae, Labiatae, Leguminaceae, Palmae, and Umbelliferae. Under na sa iyaha si Carolus Linnaeus. It's siya ba ang father of botany? Dili ko sure, nakalimot na ko. My God. Oh no. And although I also have another nga mga pang lecture notes na gamiton for you. Naka-PowerPoint presentation na ipakita lang ako sa inyo ang overview. So based on botanical or the scientific way of classifying plants, we usually have taxonomic classification. The same with entomology, no? And plant path man kamar ay ka ng Marlo. Plant path ka, dili. Kapsay ka. Mura mo kag plant path ito. Di ba mga plant path mo ito yung mga pution? Huwag ka na. Ha? Mga elite, no? And then, ang mga crab style. Wow. Dili, kuyaw kaya ang crab style. Nabinayin ang teacher. there is a po kasi ANSI, animals and crabs. Ito kabing. General dan. Dili, general gani. So, we have, of course, divided into how many kingdoms? Ganita? 7 data? Plante, Animalia, fungi, virus, bacteria, protists. 5 kingdoms, sama ako ma-remember. Tama ba? So, and then, napag-inay sub-kingdom, subdivision, class, subclass, order, suborder, family. Ang pinaka-hit din na ako in terms of scientific things, pero mga insekto. And then second, ang mga fungi. May gani ang mga virus kaya di walay scientific name. No? And then, series, species, especially ang mga flowers, no? dali ra kayo kasi ma-breed ang mga flowers. So they have a lot of variation. Kaya na siya mga variety and form. Form na ang tawag na. So of course, plants can be also classified as sexual or asexual. Diba? Ang ay. Of course, tanong-tanong is nabuhi siya through sexual, diba? Pero there are incapable plants like na sila apomexis, no? Or na sila pwede sila mag-clone. Like kami mga breadfruit, mangosteen, kay na isa lang ta ka variety sa mangosteen dere. Diba? Diba? Yung color sa itong mangosteen na kay green. Purple lang, diba? So, purple mangosteen lang siya. Kasi, siguro by native, no? Although we have green mangosteen, but not in Davao maybe. Amot kita ba mo? O green mangosteen wala? Ano nakita mo po? Variety kasi akong ginaimin, no? So, sa may Laguna, na sila two varieties na ginaingon dito, but mostly the same rapon siya. Kasi nga, like breadfruit food, isa ra pud ka variety na rin. Kasi wala, nag-clone lang siya eh. Ha? Kuan, kanang ginalungan na to. Kamansi. But breadfruit is the staple food of Samoa. Kasi Samoa katong dito ko nag-work for 2 years before ko nag-RNC. Kasi dati USEP ko, and then nag-Samoa ko, and then nag-RMC, diba? Sa Malasan ni Bonnie. I love RNC. Kasi nakailan ako si Beam. Sila Beam kasi po, ang una na ako na student, no, pagkatong pandemic Beam, no? Si ano? Nakay kasuko, kaan? Nakay kasuko kay Beam? Ay, ayaw kumpiyansa, no? Kay magbago pag-yapon ng panahon, no? Takabalo, si Beam na magugudukot sa mga pundal. Someday. Hindi na kailangan ko doon, no? Nakawon na lang. So, that's why asexual plants sila. But there are plants that they are capable of both sexual and asexual. No? Like, depende po sa variety. Okay, like, ang pamilya mo sa sake or ang abaca mismo, na siya seeds, diba? But na po siya sucker and even banana. And then, they can also be classified based on pollination. Natural self-pollinated and naturally cross-pollinated and both. Kalibog ba? Kadaghan ba na, ma'am? Kasi malay mo, ang question is, which among the different crops are naturally cross-pollinated? Well, dali ra kayo na. Kay most plants are cross-pollinated, diba? When we say cross-pollinated, through wind dispersal, no, makuha na siya, ma-pollinate siya. But how about self-pollinated? So complete flower na siya, no? Kasi siya na mismo, wala na siya kailangan cross-pollinated. No, dili po siya ma-pollinate na sa uban because murag natural territory na niya ba, no? Maski pag muhangin bumagyo, iyaharay ko dong verb ka na loyal siya sa iyahang sa iyahang male and self. Kasi male and female na kasi siya, no? And even tomato, kasi complete flower na siya, male and female. In fairness, no. Baliktad akong jacket. And both self and cross-pollinated na siya. Kasi pwede siya, pwede siya self na kung walay laki, no? Ang pasagot na ko ba male and female organ sa flowers? And pwede po siya, ako na ilaki, di ba? Manlaki ka. Or naay ko ano. Kasi complete flower na siya. Cotton and sorghum. So remember ang mga example nila. Ha? So klaro naman siguro, no? No, like for example, ang corn. Wala, nakalista ang corn. Ay, siya. Cross-pollinated. Nga nang dili cross-pollinated ang corn na kung naaman siya tassel, asa ang male and female flower sa corn? Ang tassel, asa mo na, babae, lalaki. Oh, and then asa ang babae? Ovary. Unya nga nang dili man siya tungod sa lakalayo. Ganang cross man siya, dili man siya self. Ha? Cross-pollinated gani siya, dili siya pwedeng self. Ganang dili siya pwedeng self. Nga naman siya tassel. Naman siya male and female. Although lagyo sila, pero nasa taas kasi ang tassel, no? Is it because of the position? Pag mapalit. So, ang tassel niya mismo ba mahatag sa iya o pollen?
Yes, ma'am. Self-pollinated.
Pero the truth is, yes or wrong?
Kaya self-pollinated man siya, ma'am.
Self-pollinated ang?
Corn.
Corn? Sige, sir.
Yes.
Yes, Sir Ron. Sorry, di ka na madungog. But actually, I don't know if it's really the truth, pero mo lang nasa libro, na ang corn kasi, ang tassel, late ang development sa iyang pollen. And then, ang iyang ovary is super active na, ready, recessive na ang ovary na mudawat o pollen. So that's why, ang pollen niya gikan din sa ubang tassel, not sa the same plant. So na ako picture ana mamaya, I will show you. Kasi classification pa lang tatong dinag-discuss. That's why strictly cross-pollinated din na siya. Kasi ang iyang tassel mismo, matanggal na ang pollen, ay mapalit ang pollen, or ready na ang pollen, humana ang ovary, diba? Mara kung sa tao, sa animals, akong ginapasa, animals, nagawsan na siya, wala pa ang isa, diba? Inana ba? Dili join. So, classifying for based on lifespan. This is very common. Annual, biennial, and perennial. Now, of course, annual, 1 year lang. So, ano yung mga crops sa annual natin? Very simple lang. All the vegetables are annual, no? Including rice. And pag biennial, vegetables except, mga vegetables siya, pero this is the exemption ng vegetables kasi biennial sila. Like the bulb onion, cabbage, carrot, celery, and radish. These are the brassicaceae na this will take 2 years. And more than that, the rest of the crops, mga tubers, mga trees are all perennial. Okay, di ba? So again, ano yung two classification based sa sexual, ano ba yun? Tanawa, ako rin nakalimot. Reproduction, sexual and sexual. And then based sa pollination, and both. Okay. And based on life cycle, and perennial. O, dali ra, di ba? How naman di kayo mo? Ingnan na lang kung ano. Ha? And growth habitat. Kani medyo dili common kay sa tuwa, no? How do we classify nga herbs sila, vines sila, lianas sila, shrubs, and trees? Although dali ra man tingog nga, ay herbs na siya. Ganahan kay kog herbs. So what are these herbs? Succulent na sila with self-supporting stem. Kasi naapoy mga succulent na vines and also tree vines. No? But when I say vines, they are climbing or twining. Wala sila support, so they need support. Of course, mostly aglaonema. This is an ornamental banana, plum cake, sugarcane, tomato. Are herbs, no? And vines like Karancha, ampalaya, cucumber, and sitaw, and yam. No? Ang yam ka ng ube, diba? And what are lianas? Actually, the other term for lianas are these are also vines, pero woody climbing lang siya. Like the nakita na mo climbing bamboo? Wala pa po kita. Grapevine, pero jade vine, kita na mo? Rattan and passion fruit. Naatay passion fruit farm dere? Wala, no? So these are all lianas, no? Even me, no? When right after I graduate college, all the way I thought na these are still vines, but there are terminologies na very specific. Although vines yun siya, no? But if you classify vines between vines and lianas, so vines yung medyo herbaceous na climbing. Pero pag herbaceous, it means succulent siya, ha? Pero pag woody siya, na climbing, lianas siya. And now, shrubs and trees. How do you differentiate the two? The herbs. They are tree-like and grows less 5 meters. More than 5 meters, it's already tree. No? And of course, you know the example. So again, the classification based on growth habitat, we have so, and based on leaf retention, so we have evergreen and deciduous. Evergreen meaning green yun siya, no? Di siya. Malaya man siya, pero hindi siya mga tanggal tanan. Unsa man itong mga evergreens, almost all. But when you say deciduous, like the ano, di ba? Kanang ganing Japanese, saan na? Kanto na mo, Korea, Japan. Di ba na sila cherry blossom nga ginatawag? Ang mampising, di ba, ano, kanang na ay cherry blossom dito. Sa, ano ka? Karin po ang kabantay. Kisa na lang yun dahil mong ibantayan, ha? Di ba na ay makuhaan, makupo dito na tree? And nice kayang flower pag seasonal na siya. No? Baliti. Ano sila ng isa ko? Tree? Ano sila dali? Fire tree, red mumpin, and siniguelas. Of course, kabalong mo siniguelas, di ba? Mga layan na siya. Mag-defoliate. But then, after a while, magtubo na siya bago. Mara siya koan during fall. Winter, spring, summer, and fall. So, evergreen and deciduous. Kanang isa pa ka tree gani, baliti ba? Fire drill is siguro namin. So based on leaf retention, again we have and based on adaptation or ecological habitat, we have aquatic ba siya? Pwede siyang aquatic ang term, hydrophyte or hydrophytic. So those are plants na maka-adapt of swamps, water, like the azolla. Kita na mga azolla? Kangkong, Ipomia aquatica, bulrush, nelumbo, lotus, di ba? Water lily. Masyadong wala ka remember sa water lily dito, sa Bampiseng. Wala na po kay lahi na po din yung ibantayan mo. Ano sa'yo major? Science, and mangrove. So, sa mga coastal areas, mangrove, no? Epiphyte or epiphytic, they are above ground or under on another plant, but dili sila parasitic like the other plants, no? Mga fungus, whatever. So, example like the pineapple or bromeliads, orchid, ferns. So these are all epiphytic or epiphyte. Now, and pag halophyte or halophytic, those can live with salts, no? Like nipa, talisay, bakawan, coconut, kasoy, tamarind. Nga, sa lime soil na siya, taas kay siya soil content. Halophyte siya or halophytic. And lithophyte or lithophytic, these are plants that can adapt rocky terrain and basta mga rocky mountains like mga Banda, Asusenda, and so on, mga orchid sismic. These are lithophytes. No, I don't know, but I guess litho is
Wala pa, Miss May.
rocks, di ba? Isa to, sir? Ron?
Ay, hindi mawala. Sorry.
So, you can ask question along the way, ha? So, next we have mesophyte or mesophytic. It means terrestrial siya, usually medium soil, not too dry, not too wet. No, all crabs are mesophytic or mesophyte. And parasitic or parasite, of course, daghan kay na dare. Bitaw joke ra. Rafflesia, no? The biggest flower in the world is found in Maragusan, di ba? Kita na mo? Ay, as in the whole, this, ha? Wala pa? Isay gusto mo adto kay mag-move na si Sir Eugene. Oh, kasi ano, season doon na siya. And then, pa-picture mo. Naka-picture, Bin? Wala ka picture together with the Rafflesia? And saprophyte or saprophytic, meaning these are organisms that grow on decaying material like the fungi. No? And cyophyte or cyophytic is adapted to light intensity or shady rasha, low light intensity or shady. Like the ferns, moss, black pepper, cacao, coffee, lanzones, mangosteen, hot pepper, ginger, and a lot of orchids also can tolerate. So, cyophyte or shady. So, dili kaya ang naibalang ko na ito kay sun-loving and shade-loving, no? Pero napod sila yung mga term na like cyophyte pala siya in terms. And terrestrial or land plant grows on land, of course. So, kaiba po na siya sa mesophyte, but the same naman siya actually, no? Na pwede siya i-group as halophytes, mesophytes, cyophytes, and xerophytes. So, unsa nga itong halophytes? Salty. Mesophytes? Medium soil. Not so wet, not so dry. Xerophytes? Shady. And xerophyte? No water. No? Like the Adelpha, Bromelias, Euphorbias, cactus, and mga succulents. Mga xerophyte na siya. And then, wala pa ata din na-mention. Itong kanina, lithophyte, itong rocky siya, and epiphyte, itong aerial. Okay, so again, 10 minutes. What are the 10 classification based on habitat? Leche pa. Bumalik ba si Dr. Rolino? So we have aquatic or hydrophyte, epiphyte, halophyte, lithophyte, mesophyte, parasitic, saprophyte, xerophyte, terrestrial, xero. Okay, so memorize lang those terms and understand them with all your heart, charot. Of course, you know what's the difference between crops and weed. So all plants can be crop or weeds, diba? Depending lang, no? Na ang status ni mo, say status sa imo ka, si katawa si Kumban. Usahay kita mismo weed, no? You are out of place. Or crop, na kay gamit sa tao, diba? Manggagamit lang. So anything, no, that we actually cultivate for economic use is all crops, while weeds are they compete usually for the intended crops that we have. And we don't have to find those crops, no. What are those crops? The crops. But for weeds, mostly they can also release allelochemicals, no, na toxic siya sa competing crops. So we have example lantana, neem tree, hagunoy, and yellow nutsedge. So that is why there are studies, certain studies na ginagamit sila as herbicide or as insecticide, kaning mga weeds. So once na sila yung gamit, then they become also crops someday. So unsa man mo, crop or weeds? Na mo'y gamit o wala? Usay way gamit, no? Uy, wala na dyan ko'y gamit. And kanina na atong na discuss between agronomic and horticultural crops. Again, it came from the Greek words, means agros means field and nomos means manage. So very good guys. So in short, field crops. And of course, very tanan na grow na to sa fields, usually cereals, kasi hindi ka pwede mag-pot o legumes, no? Wala na to ni ginapot, diba? Or gina-garden. Field yun na siya. Although backyard, pwede good. Kung tanong ka grabber nga backyard, oh my God, so mo na. No? Field yun na siya. And fiber crops. Forage, pasture. These are under agronomic. And horticulture is very wide and very intensive. Extensive ang agronomic. Horticulture are very intensive, meaning very specific. Dili pwede po na siyang dinagtong area. Alam, sige, pagtanong daw of flower or kanang roses nga 10 hectares, kaya? Hindi pwede, no? Although in other countries na, like, tulip? Tulips, ang ilang greenhouse kasi dito, mga tag 10 hectares. greenhouse ha. Kasi they are actually producing those sa kanang Netherlands, diba? Nakakita naman sa tulip garden sa Netherlands. Ha? Sa Cebu. O, nasa sila tulips garden. Okay, so, kasi ang tulips kailangan siya winter. Pero sa Cebu, ginawan sa nila plastic to. Bukid gila siya. Maninuod bang bugtaon? Saan pag-anto dito? Pwede na sakyan. Basig hiking na pod. Amin ako, di na ako mabuhi sa migatang ba. So, those are horticultural crafts. And even na siya very specific na difference, no? In terms of consumer. Pag horticultural crafts, tao, pero pag agronomic, para nasa animals. And appearance, important siya, non-critical naman ang agronomic. In terms of taste, critical or subjective, not non-critical sa agronomic kasi par animals man siya. And then final product, often are fresh. But pag agronomic, usually are processed or dried. And in terms of market, very specific, no? Based on choice of consumer. Ito naman, commodity siya. Low density, meaning dili pwede dinaghan, high density para agronomic. And very high vitamins compared sa agronomic. Price per unit, mahal po siya kaysa agronomic. And relative low ang value, while ang agronomic is high in value and variability is high in horticulture and agronomic low. And for breeding, ang basis for quality and appearance, while agronomic high yield and yield stability. Well, as I have said, it's still arbitrary, it's not definite, but there are references like this one that states those terms. No? So if ever ma-question siya sa the following are the characteristic of agronomic crafts. No? For example, letter A, commodity, letter B, high density, and letter C, consumed by humans. So, except lang ang pangutana. So, ang not correct answer dito is letter agronomic. Kung which of the following is not an agronomic characteristic? A, commodity, B, high density, C, consumed by human. Letter C, no? Consumed by human. So, example lang na siya. So, dapat na understanding mo na siya, the difference between the two. Kung di gyapon ka kasabot, bintutan na lang yun. And based on use, food ba siya or non-food crops or industrial? And staple crop ba siya? Pag sinabi natin staple, yun yung like equivalent sa ating rice na every meal we have. No? And cereals ba siya? Kung cereal siya, under siya sa Gramineae na plant, grass family, usually corn, millet, rice, sorghum, and wheat. But ang kasi, rosacea, ang bamboo is also our grass family, di ba? It is even the longest grass, but it's not a cereal. Kasi ang cereal are those with seeds or they have seeds or grains na gina-consume or graminoids. I think we all understand that. Even legumes, no? When we say legume seeds or pulses, those are legumes. So they are legumes because they have roots with symbiotic relationship with the bacteria, rhizobium. And because of that, they are capable of fixing nitrogen. So since they can fix nitrogen, they are very high in protein compared to meat. Imagine, kasi nga daw, the methionine which is found in meat is not enough for protein quality. So example, of course, the cowpea, monkey, peanut, and pigeon. So if you're not very sure, you just check their root system. And then kung naga na siya mga root need juice, so legume yun na siya. Leguminaceae. Root and sugar crops. Of course, tanan nga, they have modified or swollen root or underground or under root and sugar crops. So example, we have cassava, potato, saka carrots. So, but then later, may bala ninyo nga, when we say tuber, those are only used for specific crops. Like potato tuber. No, kanang white potato tuber. Kasi naiuba but mamaya, we have a lot. Then oil or seed crops like lahat na gina-produce for oils, sunflower, palm, cotton oil, coconut oil. So those are all seed crops. And sugar or sweetener crops, sa atin we have sugar, but the rest of the country, madami sila, no? Na sila ay sugar sources sa uban. So, nakalimot ko sa sugar beets. Remember, ay nakakita naman na sugar beets. Those are some of their source. So now ito yung mga organic compounds, no? Stevicide or stevia. Those are natural. And beverage crops, cacao, coconut, coffee, and sarsaparilla. So of course, they are being used as beverage. And rubber crops para sa production ng rubber. Hevea brasiliensis or Castilla elastica. Daghan kayo siya actually og types. And for latex and gum, iba pa din yan. We have even chico, no, or the manilcaras gaputa. So, ina lang ko kung gigutom na mo, no, bago mo kaputa. Gaputa, manilcara, and these are latex or gum cuts. Kaya chewing gum ninyo. And dye and tanning cuts ginagamit natin for coloring. The anato or achuete, and so on. Fiber crafts, of course, abaca, jute, magi, and rami para sa ating clothing. And pasture and forage crafts, carabao grass, firegrass, napier, ipilikel, and lenzoli. Biofuel, sugar canes, cassava, corn, coconut, castor, bean, and jatropha. So, ginahimo na itong bioethanol. And olericultural or vegetable crop. And it has even its own classification. No, it can be leafy vegetables, shoot vegetables, like the bamboo shoot and the asparagus. Dili na siya leafy, but under shoot vegetable. And pod and seed vegetable, root and bulb vegetable, flower vegetable, and fruit vegetable. No, mukhaon mo flower na katuray or squash. And then malunggay na flower, mukhaon mo na yung seeds. Diba? Pang Ilocano, namig kayo siya. And ang palaya, fruit, vegetables, tomato, peppers. Kasi we consume their food as the vegetable. But Botanical classification, they are cole crops, cucurbits, legume, lilies, and solanaceous. So cole crops are under cruciferae. They are example are cabbage, cauliflower, pechay. So mga cruciferae na siya or cole crops. And cucurbits, kanang Cucurbitaceae family. Example, butter gold, garantia, cucumber. So the same family kasi sila. That's why they are classified as cucurbits. And sa principle of gardening, kung magkapareho pa ng family sila, the more ang insect or disease. So, kung mag-practice mo o ganang intercropping, so within different family ang i-mix mo. And legume vegetables, of course, Leguminaceae or Fabaceae family. Ito. Ilamanin mo kasi pag legumes, kilala mo na yan, di ba? Lilies, asparagus, garlic, and onion. Solanaceous, under Solanaceae family or Naceae family. Representative eggplant, so kapamilya na, kamatis, pepper, and white potato. So layo na kayo, diba? Sa panalin niyo, but they are actually the same family. And mushroom, no? Although under pa din siya na pathology. We have the straw mushroom. Lamig kayo niya siya. Katilo na mo. And shiitake, termite mushroom, and kabuting higan. Pomological or fruit crops and nuts. Ito yung mga tree crops like duwag, durian, jackfruit, and small fruits like passion fruit, pineapple, strawberry. And spice crops. Now we have black pepper, garlic, ginger, hot pepper. And oil crops, again, essential oil by the way, kasi iba yung seed oil kanina. Essential oil are for scents or essential kanang binabaligya ka lang ng mahal kay Gismil. Kanang essential oil nga pang fume para sa which is therapeutic. Unsa kay na siya nga brand? Kanang pag 10K ang isa ka box. Kanang na diffuser nga pang essential oil. Wala mo na baligyan na. Okay, and ornamental crops, of course, and which are classified as lawn, cut flowers, cut foliage, edge crops, ground cover, hedges, accents, specimen. Nagtuo mo na ang ornamentals, isa ka, daghan na sila. So, pag lawn, of course, dapat, or turf grass, mga Bermuda grass, wala sila, no? Cut flowers, kanang ginakat na to, Althornium, chrysanthemum. Cut foliage, dili siya cut flower foliage, ang ginagamit like ferns, no? And edge crop, kanang ginahingo na tong landscape para imbis na weeds ang mag-grow, ground cover. Edge is ginagamit na tong barrier, no? Parang like linya, no? And like ito sila, mga cucharita, sansevieria, and ground cover yung parang pag-suppress ng weeds, kaming dripping peanut or Vietnam rose. And hedges, ang kaibahan naman sa edge, ang hedge is parang pathway siya or boundary. Kaning edge kasi pang barrier siya. So, example, Duranta, hedge bamboo, dwarf santan, and last, accents, katong hiingon kanina ni Bonnie, di ba? Ay, hindi to accent mo. Bonnie, katong gi-mention kanina? Focal point. So, focal point are actually the accents, no, which catch or attracts attention in the landscape. So, dapat na siya isa ka component sa principles of design. No, kung landscape lang ka na, kay mga plants and flowers, or asang accent or center or focal point of attention. Kanang iniktan-aw nimo siya ba na kay ginapangita na makita ninyo pagkita ay tuara mara siya like for example fountain, no? Or na dito ang grotto or monument ni Kuan Leopoldo, no? Example lang na siya. And specimen, those are mga showy features or unique characteristic desired as collector's item, no? Not only paintings but also flowers. Like for example, cactus garden. So those are specimen. Yeah. Nga ka na, or succulents. Isa pa. Katong na-addict mo sa una. Isa tong mahal kayo tag 10,000 na tanong sa pandemic. Mga plantita. Isa to siya. Katong ganing murag gabi. Nadako kayo. Badyan. O, diba? Kasi nag-collect of badyan. Kakaroon katawanan ninyo ang badyan. Sa una tag 10,000 siya. Diba? Tag 20K siya. So those are specimen. And screen. There are plants na pwede natin i-screen na itong mga vines, Indian tree shrubs, no? Jade vine sa kaan sa nakita mo jade vine nan sa katong sa Eden Park sa Davao ba tulid? Wala pa mo kasulod og Eden. At na jade vine sila, diba? Maraganig pwede nimo siya. Even po andaya, even ka ng mga ube, pwede niyo di ba, art. Those are screen. And shade crafts, iba naman siya kasi these are shrubs or pwede rin siyang trellis na vines and lianas na para supporting trellis siya. Provide shade as a single shade siya. Iba po ang screen. And avenue trees, like, they are equidistant. No, kanang by distance siya, like street, muna ginatawag siya avenue trees. Like sa Tagum, nakatala ng Tagum, kanang mga palm trees sa Tagum. Those are avenue trees. So example, acacia. And Diyos ko, ano sa panimamuman, biocidal crops, mag-break na tano. And these are crops na meron siyang insecticidal or fungicidal, like chrysanthemum, antimicrobial, and isa pa, makabuhay, tobacco, neem. And industrial crops, katong it could be pang biofuel, sugar, rubber, starch. So those are all industrial. When we say plantation, supposedly industrial are under plantation, but tanang plants na nakagrow in a large area with under intensive culture are plantation crops, no? Like tanang produce sa mga corporate companies like Dole Philippines and Del Monte. Binayran siguro ni siya nito sa kuan. So those are banana plantation, di ba? So katulad yung gi-produce like dito. And like also fiber crops and so on. Plantations. Now for those only. Cacao plantation ni Dre, di ba? Oh. Naatik ko ni mo Gab ba? Gab, unsay mga tanong dito sa summer, Gab? Oh, di ba? Tag-isa ka hektarya each, no? Wow. Laylay area. So pwede na ka na manguya og 5. And dapat yung mga special, no? Main crop, nursery crop, intercrop, feeder crop, relay crop, raccoon crop, catch, Diyos ko. Napay catch, nurse crop, companion crop. So ano ang kaibahan ng mga yan? From the word itself, main crop, syempre mo na yung main na grow. Like gab. Same dimension, ang say main crop ninyo ato. Bato? Ang tato? Joke ra gani. Manila. Naagod mi lansones, mangga, damiano, pineapple, tanan. Pero ang main crop na mo, kubon. Uy, Gab, ayaw ka kuhan habjo pa mo, Gab. Nursery crop, of course, katong mga before pag field guard or ornamental. And then intercrop, katong gi-combine mo together with your main crop. No? Filler crop, ganong filler siya. Kaya if namatyan ang isa ka area, especially kung mag-quincunx ka. So, unsa ng quincunx? Okay. Square and then naay konsa po nga. So, spell quincunx. Square na lang, ma'am. Kung sa imong kuan ani kanang sana planting design, planting sa kawan niya. Layout. Quincunx, ma'am. Sige, spell daw quincunx. Ay, mag-square na lang ko, ma'am. Yang ikuan daw. So, dito sa quincunx, filler crop ang tawag kung sa itanong mo sa tunga or any plant na i-fill mo into the gap. No? And relay crop kasi nag-relay ka. After the flowering period or harvest, sa main crop, isunod din mo siya. Kay pang relay, more ka nagdulag sana baseball. Then raccoon crop or kanang mga crop na nagatubong nga raccoon ay kanang soccer. Diba? Cash crop, ang mo na ang naka-generate of income nimo. No, well, the rest is pang subsidy lang, pang sustain, no, pagkaon subsistence. Pero katong nagabuhi dun sa inyo pang eskwela, kung sa man jud Gab ang human sa eskwela. Kupras, pila yung kita sa kupras? Wow. 33K? Pantog naka-graduate ka. Abi na kung namayot ka. Joke pa na siya, ha? Kasi mo gid ko ang although dili siya ang main crop. Pwede siya both. Pwede siya main crop and cash crop. Kaso naapoy uban na ang main crop wala ning kitag maayo. Ang katong nihimong cash crop noon ang nakita. Like ang palaya. Okay. Mo main tanong siya ng area. O para pangwarta lang to, mura ganit pamayot sa pakaron. Seryoso kayo si Dre, ba? So example sa natunanin mo ni Dre sa sa Roset Farm. So, example to ni Dre, no, sa cash crop, kalabasa. Dili. Kasi ang filler crop, Kay kung namatyan lang imong area or kung magamit kag quick counts. Like for example, lahat daghan kay ka na halimbawa isa nagdami kay isa ka variety and then namatyan na siya na wala na baligya variety. So ibang variety na lang yung gamiton. Ano pang pila? Kani. So catch crop na no? It's a short maturing plant that is grown simultaneously with or between successive plantings of the main crop para ma-utilize ang fertilizer and soil moisture lang. So, idungan lang nimo siya, pero dali na siya mag-mature. Ang mga vegetables usually, or green, ha? Oh, pwede ra po, green manure. Para ma-utilize ang gi-supplement nimo na fertilizer. Or also known as emergency crop or supplemental livestock feed. So catch crop siya. Ang importante, nasabtan nimo ang word na catch, ang cash, ang ratoon, relay. Kaya siya guitar na inana kasi mo po niyang gamit. And like nurse crop kasi, it is grown to provide shade sa kanyang kuan. For example, bata pa imuhang kakao. So, tanong ka, ay nanay daan, siyempre nauna imong lubino. Kasi pang shade, pang nurse siya, pang shade rapod siya. No. And companion crop, of course, kailangan lang yan kung complement, no, kauban sa buhay, love life, para, but not really to compete, no? So companion lang din talaga siya. Although okay lang ang single or monocropping, mas nice good na ay companion. No, example, black pepper with Madre de Cacao. Di ba mukhatay ang black pepper sa Madre de Cacao? Tama ba po? Astralis. And then, examples, no, lettuce sa sunflowers, squash, and onions. And cover crop pang control sa soil erosion. Green manure naman pang legume crop para organic fertilizer. Agroforest crop para sa cropping system or mix, and hedge crop or contour nitrogen legumes gyapon na sila or shrubs, no, na ginagamit sa sloping agricultural land technology. Nakaadto na mo sa bansalan, diba? Nakakontour ang bukid kung mag-farm, mag-garden mo sa bukid, kung sa dapat, diba? Pa-contour. So, muna yung contour. Pa-landscape. Dili pa portrait. Kasi, para i-control na to ang erosion. And usually, magtanong tao crafts, pa-contour din na siya. Like the rice terraces or kanang terraces lang mismo. Kita na ganin mo sa bansalan, di ba? Kasi sila yung south sa gilid. Para makita niyo contour. Napo ko yung picture ana later. So these are the crafts being used as contour or hedgerow. Then trap crop or decoy crop. Kaduga mo na. Imbis na ang atakehon ni mohang main crop sa peste. So, tamno ni mo sila basil para mo na siya pang trap or decoy. Then garlic, chive, corn, marigold, mo na sila maka-attract or makapatrap. But there are also insect pest repellent, no? Meaning, di ganahan ng mga insekto like the aniseed, basil, chive, garlic, marigold, and so. And natural enemies or attractant trap na siya, deal, and so on. Yay, manan. Questions? So, 15-minute break or 20 usually? 20 minutes? 15 minutes break. So, wala yung pangutana? Oo, i-forward na sa GC and then mag-print out ko din. Kaso slow kaya ang kanang ay lagsaba ha. Mura jud ko kadto. Ang type na ako ba? Na wala pa na ako mag-print. Wala pa itong answer ni ano? Answer key? Mga mo answer key. I-copy or kuan? Or print. I-copy na lang. So, i-forward na lang gapon naman sa GC. Okay, so mag-quiz na mamaya ha. Joke lang ito. Kaso wala pa na ako nahuman ng coverage na to. Sige, 15. Wala na yung question also from the online. Unsay gamo sa ingon na naman ko top 5. Sige, pagbalik na ako. Nag-check. Nag-check pa ko ta. Ay, sorry, gabo mo ko na yung slow ganina, no? So ako sa mag-break ka dali ha. Mga pita sa office pa. Kadali sa mga kalibo ko mo. Ada isang upuan.
Good day. Today's topic will bring us back to ancient times to trace the history of agriculture and how it developed into our modern time. Over centuries, the growth of agriculture contributed to the rise of civilizations. Before agriculture became widespread, people spent most of their lives searching for food, hunting wild animals, and gathering wild plants. About 11,500 years ago, people gradually learned how to grow cereal and root crops and settled down to a life based on farming. By 2,000 years ago, much of the Earth's population had become dependent on agriculture. Scholars are not sure why this shift to farming took place, but it may have occurred because of climate change. When people began growing crops, they also began herding and breeding wild animals. Adapting wild plants and animals for people to use is called domestication. The first domesticated plant was probably rice or corn. Chinese farmers were cultivating rice as early as 7,500 BCE. The first domesticated animals were dogs, which were used for hunting. Sheep and goats were probably domesticated next. People also domesticated cattle and pigs. Most of these animals have once been hunted for hides and meat. Now many of them are also sources of milk, cheese, and butter. Eventually, people used domesticated animals such as oxen for plowing, pulling, and transportation. Agriculture is the art and science of cultivating the soil, growing crops, and raising livestock. It includes the preparation of plant and animal products for people to use in their distribution to markets. Agriculture provides most of the world's food and fabrics. Agriculture enabled people to produce surplus food. They could use this extra food when crops failed or traded for other goods. Food supplies allowed people to work. The earliest civilizations based on intensive agriculture arose near the Tigris and Euphrates rivers in Mesopotamia, now Iraq. Survived by hand, using axes to clear away trees and digging sticks to break up and till the soil. Over time, improved farming tools involved stone, rods, and iron were developed. New methods of storage evolved. People began stockpiling foods in jars and clay lime pits for use in times of scarcity. They also began making clay pots. Farmers in Mesopotamia developed simple irrigation systems.
Wala, nagpalong ako ka na lang. So, also in accordance with siya 167.
Early farmers also developed improved varieties of plants. For example, around 6,000 BC, a new variety of wheat rose in South Asia and Egypt. It was stronger than previous cereal grains. Its hulls were easier to remove and it could be made into bread. As the Romans expanded their today's Good day. Today's topic will bring us back to ancient times to trace the history of agriculture and how it developed into our modern time.
For centuries, the growth of agriculture contributed to the rise of civilizations. Before agriculture became widespread, people spent most of their lives searching for food, hunting wild animals, and gathering wild plants. About 11,500 years ago, people gradually learned how to grow cereal and root crops and settled down to a life based on farming. By 2,000 years ago, much of the Earth's population had become dependent on agriculture. Scholars are not sure why this shift to farming took place, but it may have occurred because of climate change. When people began growing crops, they also began herding and breeding wild animals. Adapting wild plants and animals for people to use is called domestication. The first domesticated plant was probably rice or corn. Chinese farmers were cultivating rice as early as 7,500 BCE. The first domesticated animals were dogs, which were used for hunting. Sheep and goats were probably domesticated next. People also domesticated cattle and pigs. Most of these animals had once been hunted for hides and meat. Now many of them are also sources of milk, cheese, and butter. Eventually, people used domesticated animals such as oxen for plowing, pulling, and transportation. Agriculture is the art and science of cultivating the soil, growing crops, and raising livestock. It includes the preparation of plant and animal products for people to use in their distribution to markets. Agriculture provides most of the world's food and fabrics. Agriculture enabled people to produce surplus food. They could use this extra food when crops failed and trade it for other goods. Food surpluses allowed people to work at other tasks unrelated to farming. Agriculture kept formerly nomadic people near their fields and led to the development of permanent villages. These became linked through trade. New economies were so successful in some areas that cities grew and civilizations developed. The earliest civilizations based on intensive agriculture arose near the Tigris and Euphrates rivers in Mesopotamia, now Iraq and Iran, and along the Nile River in Egypt. For thousands of years, agricultural development was very slow. One of the earliest agricultural tools was fire. Native Americans used fire to control the growth of berry-producing plants, which they could do quickly after a wildfire. Farmers cultivated small plots of land by hand, using axes to clear away trees and digging sticks to break up and till the soil. Over time, improved farming tools of bone, stone, bronze, and iron were developed. New methods of storage evolved. People began stockpiling foods in jars and clay lined pits for use in times of scarcity. They also began making clay pots and other vessels for carrying and cooking food. Around 5,500 BCE, farmers in Mesopotamia developed simple irrigation systems. By channeling water from streams onto their fields, farmers were able to settle in areas once thought to be unsuited to agriculture. In Mesopotamia, and later in Egypt and China, people organized themselves and worked together to build and maintain better irrigation systems. Early farmers also developed improved varieties of plants. For example, around 6,000 BCE, a new variety of wheat arose in South Asia and Egypt. It was stronger than previous cereal grains. Its hulls were easier to remove and it could be made into bread. As the Romans expanded their empire, they adapted the best agricultural methods of the people they conquered. There were manuals about the farming techniques they observed in Africa and Asia and adapted them to land in Europe. The Chinese also adapted farming tools and methods from nearby empires. A variety of rice from Vietnam vine quickly allowed farmers to harvest several crops during a single growing season. This rice quickly became popular throughout China. Many medieval European farmers used to have a field system of planting. One field would be planted in spring, another in autumn, and one would be left unplanted or fallow. This system preserved nutrients in the soil, increasing crop production. The leaders of the Islamic Golden Age, which reached its height around 1000 BCE in North Africa and the Middle East, made agriculture into a science. From Asia, they carried home coffee, tea, and indigo, a plant used to make blue dye. In the 15th and 16th centuries, explorers introduced new varieties of plants and agricultural products into Europe. From the Americas, they took plants such as potatoes, tomatoes, corn, beans, peanuts, and tobacco. Some of these became staples and expanded people's diets. That is all for now. Thank you very much for viewing our first part of the history of agriculture. I hope you learned and enjoyed watching. Coming up next, inventions of machinery that aided in the development of ancient agriculture. See you.
Okay na sila. Okay, welcome back. So before okay na mo? Nakakauna? So before mag-continue with our discussion on the history and classification, do you have questions before we proceed to the next? Actually, mag-go back pa ta sa history, no? Kasi wala na ako na-present. Katong video lang manoon siya and then highlights lang about what happened in the course of history. So walay question. So let me na lang muna congratulate yung ating top 5 sa face-to-face. Yung sa online naman, ongoing pa kasi yung iba wala pa man nag-submit. And gina-check pa po nila. So sa face-to-face, ang top 1 nato yan with the score of 167. Wala pa man si Dre, but let's give a hand to Steve Andre Paler. So ang future nato na top 10. So kani mga top 5 mo ni future top. Pero pwede gyapon mo habol ang uban ha. Basig, Bonelin ha, basig di na ka, ma-discourage na ka. Pwede pa ka muhabol sa top 10. So wala pa si Andre. And top 2 natin. So ang GCash natin na price for top 1 is 100. Second to top 5, tag 50 na lang mo ha. So, and then palihog lang sa inyong GCash number kay Sir John Paul. Or pwede na po, lain po, no? Kanang tagantamog cash na tag 50. Pwede na po, no? I-claim niyo. And ang top 2 natin ay si Jessie Jean Garcia with 157. Dali Bim, I also have mga giveaways. Katong nag-postdoc ko sa Germany and Spain. And collection lang siya from different countries. Dali, pili ka dali. Ang ref market yan Barcelona na Barcelona. Ay, ref market mo kami. Kani Spain. Portugal din. Sige.
Thank you.
So, and top 3 na to si Bonnie Becerra. Dali, Bonnie. Mga collections na ko na actually. So, medyo kanang kuha na siya ha. Abog-abog kasi. Ako na siyang gisupot na saan na po ang collection.
Thank you, Jim.
I'm mahal score dali. Wala pa na ulit sa inyo, no? And si top 3 na to ay top 4 na, no? Top 4 si Shema K. Gasatan. Wala man si Madam Shena, no? Shema. And top 4, asa naman ko? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Pare-pareho pala silang score. And top 5 na is si Sir Eric Duway. So, i-claim ang 50 kay Sir John Pola. Ganun lang. Wala lagi. Ay, si Shem ang wala na. Congrats! So, future na to naman. Ha? Sige lang. Kay, repeat na mo tanan og answer. So, we will have another exam. Dali, Dre, on top 1. On top 1 sa board. Dali kayo, pili ka lang paan. O giveaways. So, kay Shema. Kasi kailan ni Shema? Next na lang, no? So, sa mga online, bulat-bulat lang pa sa ako ang checker, ha? And we will announce later. Again, we will encourage you na mag-top na po katong the rest na wala natin sa top 5. Hopefully, mas importante ang target ni data is 80%. Ha? Para aim high ba pa. So, kanina, nag-review ko nga history of agriculture. And you can always go back with this one. Kung giunsa nagsugod. Okay, sa'yo nakakita sa video kanina? Wala ba tanaw? So, we will watch once again.
Good day. Today's topic will bring us back to ancient times to trace the history of agriculture and how it developed into our modern time. Over centuries, the growth of agriculture contributed to the rise of civilizations. Before agriculture became widespread, people spent most of their lives searching for food, hunting wild animals, and gathering wild plants. About 11,500 years ago, people gradually learned how to grow cereal and root crops and settled down to a life based on farming. By 2,000 years ago, much of the Earth's population had become dependent on agriculture. Scholars are not sure why this shift to farming took place, but it may have occurred because of climate change. When people began growing crops, they also began herding and breeding wild animals. Adapting wild plants and animals for people to use is called domestication. The first domesticated plant was probably rice or corn. Chinese farmers were cultivating rice as early as 7,500 BCE. The first domesticated animals were dogs, which were used for hunting. Sheep and goats were probably domesticated next. People also domesticated cattle and pigs. Most of these animals had once been hunted for hides and meat. Now many of them are also sources of milk, cheese, and butter. Eventually, people used domesticated animals such as oxen for plowing, pulling, and transportation. Agriculture is the art and science of cultivating the soil, growing crops, and raising livestock. It includes the preparation of plant and animal products for people to use in their distribution to markets. Agriculture provides most of the world's food and fabrics. Agriculture enabled people to produce surplus food. They could use this extra food when crops failed or traded for other goods. Food surpluses allowed people to work at other tasks unrelated to farming. Agriculture kept formerly nomadic people near their fields and led to the development of permanent villages. These became linked through trade. New economies were so successful in some areas that cities grew and civilizations developed. The earliest civilizations based on intensive agriculture arose near the Tigris and Euphrates rivers in Mesopotamia, now Iraq and Iran, and along the Nile River in Egypt. For thousands of years, agricultural development was very slow. One of the earliest agricultural tools was fire. Native Americans used fire to control the growth of berry-producing plants, which they knew grew quickly after a wildfire. Farmers cultivated small plots of land by hand, using axes to clear away trees and digging sticks to break up and till the soil. Over time, improved farming tools of both stone, bronze, and iron were developed. New methods of storage evolved. People began stockpiling foods in jars and clay-lined pits for use in times of scarcity. They also began making clay pots and other vessels for carrying and cooking food. Around 5,500 BCE, farmers in Mesopotamia developed simple irrigation systems. By channeling water from streams onto their fields, farmers were able to settle in areas once thought to be unsuited to agriculture. In Mesopotamia, and later in Egypt and China, people organized themselves and worked together to build and maintain better irrigation systems. Early farmers also developed improved varieties of plants. For example, around 6000 BCE, a new variety of wheat arose in South Asia and Egypt. It was stronger than previous cereal grains. Its hulls were easier to remove and it could be made into bread. As the Romans expanded their empire, they adapted the best agricultural methods of the people they conquered. They wrote manuals about the farming techniques they observed in Africa and Asia and adapted them to land in Europe. The Chinese also adapted farming tools and methods from nearby empires. A variety of rice from Vietnam ripened quickly and allowed farmers to harvest several crops during a single growing season. This rice quickly became popular throughout China. Many medieval European farmers used an open field system of planting. One field would be planted in spring, another in autumn, and one would be left unplanted or fallow. This system preserved nutrients in the soil, increasing crop production. The layers of the Islamic Golden Age, which reached its height around 1000 BCE in North Africa and the Middle East, made agriculture into a science. From Asia, they carried home coffee, tea, and indigo, a plant used to make blue dye. In the 15th and 16th centuries, explorers introduced new varieties of plants and agricultural products into Europe. From the Americas, they took plants such as potatoes, tomatoes, corn, beans, peanuts, and tobacco. Some of these became staples and expanded people's diets. That is all for now. Thank you very much for viewing our first part of the history of agriculture. I hope you learned and enjoyed watching. Coming up next, inventions of...
Okay, so in that video, there are a lot of points to consider, no? Unang-una, when does agriculture began? Kano sa nagsugod ang agriculture? 11,500 years ago, no? So, and then that is as old as civilization. And which country does it began? Mesopotamia now, it's Iran and Iraq, followed by Egypt and China. So what were the first crops to produce? Corn, wheat, rice. And where does this crop came from? Asa gikan ang wheat? Egypt. Asa gikan ang rice?
Mexico. Mexico.
Iran?
Mexico.
Mexico, ang rice o ang corn? Ang wheat? Ang rice came from China, diba? Sa China. So, actually, history itself is, yung sabi ko, arbitrary lang. It's just like, ang sabi nga ni Kuan, sige na inyong anak. Was it, Albert Einstein or si Elon Musk? Kailan mo ni Elon Musk, no? He's the He's the scientist na nag-create karon og kanang trip to Mars. And yeah, he's crazy. And he's also a scientist, entrepreneur. And he also have the energy gani nga ay kanang electric cars. Tesla. See, kailan mo ni Tesla? But si Tesla actually was the scientist who were missed by civilization. Although di siya na-miss no, nadaman sa history, pero siya ang nag-inventos actually sa electricity. I know that the Volta, we have the Volta and others pa no, but siya ang maragid sa AC, kanang AC nga electric. Kasi syempre sa light, we know that Thomas Edison. But before mapasigan ni Thomas Edison ang light, it was actually Tesla nga nag-connect sa AC sa bulb. And then, yun pagani may kuan, was it Albert Einstein? Ang geography daw is a fake science. No, kasi it's arbitrary, like history. No, we don't have basis for it. Only kuan lang, mara ganyan siya. Ano lang ka na haka-haka theory. Kasi we only base that in the unsay artifacts or unsay evidence na nabilin, but we don't know which is really true. Like for example, religion, no? We believe in Bible, but some only believe it as a merely literature. No, but they say no, anak, no, depende. We don't have the same religion, we have different gods. So, those are arbitrary. Those are not scientific, and even science alone cannot explain everything. So, we still need faith. So, going back doon sa ating history, although mayon sila nga, oh, di ka na sa China, di ka na sa Mexico. No, but that's not really fixed. Like when we classify horticulture and agronomic crafts, that's not fixed. They can have lapses. And like when we say, ang rice just was first discovered in China, but you say it came from Vietnam. So the video, sa China na siya. So, but then, in some questions, maybe in the board exam, we will focus on the board exam, ha? So, pag na-ay choices na between Vietnam and China, so diyan na magtigi ka ron. No? But if not, so you are safe to choose Vietnam or China. So, it's sometimes very critical. So, that's for rice and some other crops. But in the Philippines, ang dapat i-remember na natin is that may ganito na si Magellan kasi nagkaroon tayo ng record in kung saan ganito siya ng century na he discovered the Philippines. Ha? 15th century? 1521. 15th century, the 16th century. So, in nga natin record, and that's also the time then when he brought spices. Diba? That's the time kasi before Spaniards na Spanish regime. And it's the Spanish regime na nanatay wheat, bread, no? Kasi we don't have actually record. We have everything na siguro, no, natay mga dato, diba? Mga community, tribes, and so on. But we don't have records. Kasi by culture, yung ating mga forefathers, grandfathers are not actually writing in stone just like the other rest of the world. Kasi si Magellan is actually ang story ganyan is si Ferdinand Magellan is a Portuguese, diba? And how come he is under the Spanish galleon, diba? For the Spanish na, he's working for the Spaniards. Kasi, by King Philip. Kasi si Magellan, ang story niya, which is still, sabi ko, not fixed, no? Based lang doon sa author nga talaga nag-study, nag-interview, nag-dig into the history ba. So, di man siya pandingan sa Portugal. Diba? Strong rival kay Portugal and Spain. And tapad na ba na sila na country? O na even na sila maraganiga ng bridge na ilahang lain ba sa ubang country, no? Kay like sa Netherlands and Belgium. Linya lang ang ilahang like Mexico and US. No? So, yato siya kay King Philip. Dito siya nangayog funding. And then, ato siya around, yun siya nga nagdala na po siya mga spices from Philippines. So, dito first, probably, nakatag ang mga crops. And probably, we had new varieties of coffee, especially wheat corn. No? Kasi, hindi siya native. Except for which among the different plants na talaga indigent sa Philippines? Cacao from other country, then yung ibang varieties, although we maybe have native. Like coffee, we may have native. Pero so far, it's really Abaca. No? It's only really in Philippines. But now, of course, meron sa letter J na country sa Ecuador. No? Letter J, Ecuador. Sorry. Sa Ecuador, it's being produced now and dapat gani, no? Nag-down ang Philippines gani ang katong dato pa ang Pilipinas. Do you believe na dato talaga ang Pilipinas before? We even have the first bongacious na mga buildings kumpara sa Vietnam and even Thailand and sa kana. Mga usa na mga ubang Southeast Asia. Singapore, mga pipitsugin na sila before. Karon biyaan na no? And our hope is our future leaders kasi the existing leaders are already affected through generation. Ngayon ang hope na sa inyo. So kamo mga future na kung mo din ng mga director sa inyong mga offices. Di ka to makatawa ba ya ka ay, no? And so throughout history, kung sa giingon, before ko, kung sa giingon, the progress of agriculture was very slow. Is that true? Antud karon bunag yapon.
Ang mga nakalungkot, especially, not blaming everyone. Like in LG, ang national about the government national. For the LG, we have sila ba, slow, and ang transportation, community, education, so, that's the time siguro makalong that or na albert na is a lack of government funds very practically just what the layo condition.
But have you been to some other countries besides Philippines? Wala ka. And you, of course, so through television and network, we have seen how, diba? And in fact, we are 20 years behind from other countries. No? Like we are still awaiting until now, kailan magkaroon ng bridge between Davao and Samar. Samantala ko sa ubang country now in just 1 month tapos na yan. Na sila yung mga underground tunnels going out from Paris to UK. O diba, ganun ka-amazing. Ang Japan itself, kung sino yung mga Japan-UK dali nga mga isa kitawanan ninyo mga descendants, no? There is not only one metro station company. There are more than 4 metro station company. Kung may metros and subways nasa ilalong underground na train. No? Or bullet train in China. Diba? Diba? Have you heard of that? So those are just some. Although, itong course na ito, introduction, is a very long topic. As you can see, as you can see dito, task nga topics na ako, branches, craft. So I will skip onto this kasi na-discuss na nato kanina. And the present and the future. No? But before we proceed here, ito kasabot, mapoto siya. So anyway, and before I forget, what were the first animals being domesticated? Was it sheep? Huh?
Dog.
A dog. Dog. Saba. Sheep, and then later cattle. Huh? And swine. Pigs. Okay. Yes, no? And then even sa mga, they call it itong mga first mga countries in the Mesopotamia part, the Fertile Crescent. So you should also remember what is Fertile Crescent, that yung Mesopotamia. I have here a slide to show you also later. ano yung Fertile Crescent, nakikita mo sa mapa dito, hindi na sa video. But I will be providing naman ninyo the PowerPoints. It's just too many, medyo bulky kasi ko pag mag-present. And they believe na ang baboy or pig is sacred. So, dili siya dapat kaunom. Sa ilahan na, and then, later, nag-change, no? Dati, ilahang sa pagana, draft animal is baka, di ba? Tatua, kabaw. So, we shall have the modern farm technologies. Of course, you have seen this one naman, no? Sige, diretso na lang sa future farm. So what is happening in the present or in the future? Have you seen this video?
Over the next 2 decades, a technological wave will revolutionize the efficiency of farms all over the world. It can't come soon enough. By the year 2050, the human population will be nearly 10 billion, which means we'll need to have doubled the amount of food we now produce. This is an examination of the agricultural innovations coming down the pipeline that will help get us there. The industry has undergone major developments over the last century. 100 years ago, farming looked like this. Today, it looks like this, and tomorrow, it'll look something like this. These changes have allowed many of us to do other things with our lives. In 1900, about 11 million agricultural workers produced the food for 76 million people. Today, just 6.5 million workers feed 321.4 million Americans. 2 factors were most responsible for this surge in productivity: engines and the widespread availability of electricity. Today, the innovations on our immediate horizon include autonomous pickers. UK researchers have already created one that gathers strawberries twice as fast as humans. The challenge will be creating robotic pickers that can switch between all kinds of crops. Robots or drones that can precisely remove weeds or shoot them with a targeted spritz of pesticide using 90% less chemicals than a conventional blanket sprayer. For the organic farmer, they could zap the weeds with a laser instead. This could have a big impact. The UN estimates that each year between 20 and 40% of global crop yields are destroyed by pests and disease. Tiny sensors and cameras will monitor crop growth and alert farmers on their smartphones if there's a problem or when it's the best time to harvest. The Bonnie Rod can take a soil sample, liquidize it, and analyze its pH and phosphorus levels all in real time. As a proof of concept for all this autonomous farming technology, researchers at Harvard Adams in the UK plan to grow and harvest an entire hectare of barley without humans ever entering the field. Companies like AgRobotics have already commercialized software that analyzes drone-captured infrared images to spot unhealthy vegetation. Then, like a real-life game of Sim Farmer, the grower is alerted on their device when a troubled area is identified. Machine learning is regularly improving the system's ability to differentiate between varieties of crops and the weeds that threaten them. Not to be left out, a company called Mavericks contracts 100 pilots to fly light aircraft that are outfitted with multispectral cameras on data gathering missions over large farms throughout the country. For an even wider view, Planet Labs operates a fleet of CubeSats that take weekly images of entire farms from space to help monitor crops. Other companies are creating analytics software to act as farm management systems, allowing growers of all sizes to deal with this new tsunami of data. And the Farmers Business Network combines data from many farms into one giant pool to give its members the power of macro-level insights that have traditionally only been available to corporate mega farms. Vertical farms are essentially warehouses with stacks of hydroponic systems to grow leafy greens. They're sprouting up in cities all over the world where fresh produce and land is scarce. The key obstacle here is the cost of energy and the toll using a lot of it takes on the environment. The upside is that artificial lights and climate-controlled buildings allow crops to grow day and night year-round, producing a significantly higher yield per square foot than an outdoor farm. For now, though, only expensive foods like lettuce or herbs like basil are profitable in the vertical system. And the jury is definitely still out on whether this is truly an environmentally friendly technique. One possible solution is to use blue and red light wavelengths to optimize photosynthesis and turbo boost growth, a technique tested by researchers at Project Growing Underground, an experimental farm operating in old World War II bomb shelters underneath London. Another advancement in indoor farming is the Open Agriculture Initiative, which aims to create a catalog of climates so temperature and humidity can be set to recreate the perfect conditions for growing crops that would normally come from all over the world locally instead. This is an attempt to tackle the food miles issue. When produce is shipped around the world, it creates unnecessary CO2 emissions. Just look at where a few of the items you'll eat today were cultivated to understand how big of a problem this is. The millions of people entering the middle class every year in developing countries are demanding tens of millions of pounds of additional meat. These ideas aim to get the most from every animal. Who would have thought Fitbits could be for livestock too? Cows are being fitted with smart collars that monitor if they're sick or if they're moving around more, which is a sign of fertility. Researchers at Scotland's Rural College are analyzing cow breath. Exhaled ketones and sulfides reveal potential problems with an animal's diet. Thermal imaging cameras spot inflamed udders to provide earlier treatment to combat a bacterial infection known as mastitis, one of the costliest setbacks in the dairy industry. 3D cameras quickly measure the weight and muscle mass of cattle so they're sold at their beefiest. Companies have even begun positioning microphones above pig pens to detect coughs, giving sick animals the treatment they need a full 12 days earlier than before. Less antibiotics are used if fewer animals become ill for shorter lengths of time. And a system of just 3 cameras developed by researchers in Belgium tracks the movement of thousands of chickens to analyze their behavior and spot over 90% of possible problems. Here's a stat that I found eye-opening. Consumption of farmed fish has now surpassed our consumption of beef, and researchers are working to increase the types of fish that are raised. Aquaculturists at the Institute of Marine and Environmental Technology in Baltimore are developing an artificial ecosystem that mimics ocean conditions so that saltwater fish farms can be built inland. This would allow millions of landlocked people to be able to enjoy fresh fish instead of consuming frozen fish grown or caught on the coast that have to be shipped thousands of miles in refrigerated trucks that use a lot of energy. The most exciting thing about this experimental fish farm is that it's actually a closed system that creatively uses 3 sets of bacteria in different ways so it doesn't produce any waste and even powers itself.
This is the world's most sustainably produced fish. The system is completely and fully contained. There is zero interaction with the environment. There is no waste. It's zero waste goes back to the environment, which is the big problem with aquaculture today.
This revolutionary technique could be critical for saving species in the wild, like rapidly depleting bluefin tuna populations without curbing the appetites of sushi lovers like me. Another ingenious approach from a company in California are proteinaceous fish food pellets made from the bodies of a bacteria that grow by consuming a combination of methane, oxygen, and nitrogen. The UN's Food and Agriculture Organization estimates that 2 billion people consume insects as part of their diet.
Moi, je mange les insectes, c'est trop évident. Donc, ça nourrit le corps et ça n'a pas de graisse et ça ne nuit pas au corps. C'est un peu seul être humain mange ça tout le temps. Peu rare qu'il aura des maladies.
Bugs are among the cheapest, most nutritious, environmentally friendly sources of protein. So there's a growing movement to find new ways to incorporate them into food products that can be marketed in a way that doesn't gross people out. Two examples are protein powder and insect flour. But even if insects never make it onto many of our plates, it can still help us a lot as animals. On the other end of the alternative protein spectrum is lab-grown meat. In 2013, the first hamburger was made from muscle cells grown in a lab in the Netherlands, followed by a meatball grown by a California company called Memphis Meats. These grabbed headlines, but production costs need to come way down before we'll be buying synthetic meats in significant quantities.
So it's better for the environment, and we need to use less resources to actually produce it so that we can produce much more meat with much less resources so that we can feed the entire planet. And we'll probably look back at this time as sort of
barbaric, that we still killed animals and used animals to such a degree for our meat consumption.
Human survival on Earth has, by necessity, driven us to use and to change the world around us. Some of our most powerful innovations are aimed at solving problems we ourselves create. As climate patterns change and human population rises, the prospect of a global food shortage becomes increasingly dire. It's a threat that even the deployment of millions of autonomous farmer bots would be unlikely to solve. But where man-made machines may fall short, bacterial machines may very well prevail, bringing me to the technology that can continue to deliver the biggest increases in crop yield: genetic modification. Scientific breakthroughs like CRISPR, genomic selection, and SNPs now allow single letters within a gene to be precisely edited, unlike older methods of genetic manipulation like transgenic modification. Bacterial machines may very well prevail, bringing me to the technology that can continue to deliver the biggest increases in crop yield: genetic modification. Scientific breakthroughs like CRISPR, genomic selection, and SNPs now allow single letters within a gene to be precisely edited, unlike older methods of genetic manipulation like transgenic modifications that made uncontrolled alterations to large regions of DNA. CRISPR, a gene editing system repurposed from bacteria, more closely mimics the process of random mutation. This process is critical for environmental adaptation, Darwinian natural selection, and ultimately evolution. While this fact alone may not placate the most passionate anti-GMO advocate, highly precise techniques like CRISPR should help ease the legitimate health and environmental concerns that have thus far curbed significant commercial investments. But not everyone is sitting on the sidelines. Two large agricultural companies, DuPont and Syngenta, have used genome selection to develop two new drought-tolerant strains of corn called Aquamax and Artesian. Then there's the Next Gen Cassava project, led by Cornell University in partnership with research institutes all over Africa, that aims to, quote, significantly increase the rate of genetic improvement in cassava breeding to unlock the full potential of this staple crop that's central to food security and livelihoods across Africa. Genetically improving the cultivation of other crops that haven't been modified yet could additionally lead to huge yield increases from millet and yams. For example, rice, one of the world's most important crops, has seen its yield plateau, meaning that for years now, the maximum amount that can be grown on, say, an acre of land has not increased. The C4 Rice Project, a massive global collaboration between 18 biology labs spread across 4 continents, is trying to change that. Their goal is to genetically engineer a new strain of rice so that its photosynthetic process works more like maize, which would, theoretically, turbo boost its yield by 50%. And of course, it's not just crops. Pig lines, for example, are being altered to make them immune to an illness that costs American farmers $600 million a year. While it's hard to predict which of these developments will have the greatest impact on food production, we should be pursuing all of them. The use of genetic technologies will, inevitably, prove essential for tackling what would likely be an insurmountable challenge, sustainably doubling our global food supply. The good news is that some of the world's most creative scientists, engineers, farmers, and innovators are working on solutions for this problem, even as you watch this video. This piece was based on articles that recently appeared in The Economist and the journal Nature. And our recent video on India's highway mega project led some of you to suggest other projects for us to look into. Your suggestions for video topics are always appreciated. Thanks for watching. Until next time for TDC, I'm Bryce Plank.
Okay. So those were the future. No, there are a lot of technologies, no, modern farm technologies. I even have here mga 15 current modern farm technologies, which is definitely the same lang doon sa na-present sa future farming, no? So these are the things like vertical farms, no, that might be mentioned, although in our time, in last year maybe, not yet pa siya na-include, no, what are the future technologies. Actually, these are already existing, but still in other countries, those countries na maka-afford. No? In the Philippines, it's yet to come in the next century. Hindi bitawang century, grabe po, no? Mga dekada lang po. Kasi we have automized na naman na what they call that, ang technology lang maging na high-tech is agromet station, di ba? Although, mayon tag na mubagyo karon, di ba? Mubagyo, di ba? Inana po siya kuan no? High-tech na kasi maka-detect na taog mga inana ng event. And yeah, like vertical farms, possible na siya in the cities, like ready to harvest na ng mga lettuce. Sa tuwa, ang technology na to nakapat lang pang hydroponic ng mga lettuce, no? And solar panel farming, we use kanang solar panel as source of electricity, biofuel, no? Our aqua. Sir Marlon, sanay technology nato sa BFAR? Sa aqua farm. Pareha na ato sa ila. Kapag nalagay sila budget na po. I guess the problem natin sa government is we don't have enough manpower in the agriculture, no? Kamo kisay nasa government kay sa agri. Pero ang private na nakisariling company. So it's not enough technician, diba? We need more kasi supposedly natin reach vast resources. We can create our own natural source of energy without spending too much. But then, tagal magyabot ko lang. Management, kanang genius idea, strong leadership, and most importantly, mga discipline na citizen. Kasi so much more on that, aquaponics, aeroponics, climate change, biotechnology, kanina na-mention no, mga GMO. Ano yung mga company na you should remember? Ano yon? And CRISPR, and isa pa. Ano yung mga sa swine naman? Ano yon? Sa rice. So anyway, I will give you the link para ma-review ninyo. Ito lang ang mga technologies na terms na dapat. I-list down na lang ko na ako siya in a sheet of paper para ma-review ninyo. Amo ito na-mention. Kesa masig mo balik-balik sa video, no? Kanina ang video din na ito, wala na ako na-post. And then lastly, nanotechnology. Have you heard of nanotechnology? Like dili jud siya nano nga kanin, dili pa ni nanotechnology ha? Kasi when we speak of nanotechnology, very small talaga siya. Murag ito 1 million of like how many strands of your hair, smaller pa yun, no? So nanotechnology is another important na futuristic po na siya that can solve most of our problems. Kasi, but are you aware? Kasi I'm a fertilizer researcher, and most of my products that I am studying right now, one which is from Thailand, they have that kind of technology na nano ingredients na siya. And the more kasi mas effective ang absorption and efficiency when naka-nano particles na siya. Kasi kanang based sa explanation, mura siya naka-screen ba? Like when you dissolve a sugar in your milk or in your coffee, di ba it takes you time to dissolve. But when you use nanoparticles, marag ano lang, no? And then it's being absorbed by plants. And yeah, I could say it's really very efficient. Kasi I only have used, I guess, 2 products still. Doha pa to ka products ako ang na-try. And naka-ana ko, hala, grabe na ang Thailand pa. Kasi kung makaadto mo sa Thailand, mas dato ko beto sa Thailand kung ikumpara. But they are, Vietnam pala yun. They are the top producer ang Vietnam ng rice. No? So, yun. But we still have hope for the Philippines. Now, and I am about to present to you also the statistics, no? But I want to show also various, katong classification. Ayun siya din. Nawala ka. That I have mentioned, i-show lang na ako nung although di na ako isa-isa ko. Asa na ganit ko? Okay, maybe we can start with fruit botanical classification. So, and also scientific names. So we will have an exercise. Ay, ina-Yusuf gapon eh. O, naka-Yusuf pa yung nga file. So as I have said kanina, naka-botanical classification na siya. So example of under sa fruit, no? Division Phalophyta, Bryophyta, Pteridophyta, Spermatophyta. So we have 4 division under plant kingdom. Ang mga algae, so Phalophytes na sila. Ang moss and liverworts, they are the only group of plants, bryophytes, na who can live without roots, without stems. Kita naman siguro ng moss, di ba? And pteridophyte ferns and allies. So actually, ang mga ferns are the longest living na mga, of course, moss, algae, and bacteria. Sila yung pinaka-oldest na creature in the Philippines, in the world, in Earth. No? As old as like na mga museum sa China, no? When I went to China, na sila kalagay mag-hiking ka, na sila mga direct specimen nga nakabutang dito, kaninga fern is 500 years old. Di ba ma-amaze ka? And we also have trees here, di ba? Mga centennial trees. No? And maybe asa din nang naaykuan ka ng somewhere sa Gobjen, no? Ito na yung mga sige na museum dara. Ano na yung mga bonsai? Ha? Hamigitan. Oo. Na yung mga ferns dito or mga unsa siya? O pakakadto? Sige, ato ta ha. Ugma na. Trabaho pa next na lang. Ha? Isa nakadura dito. Hali, Diyos ko, Gobjen lang na. Bantabon. So, yun. And spermatophytes, yun yung mga seed plants. And this where all the crops belong. Gymnosperm, angiosperm, monocots, dicots. Okay. Ito yung family Agavaceae or the fiber crops, no, sisal, and the scientific name. Kasoy, Anacardium Nagifera indica, under family Anacardiaceae. And Siniguelas or purple mambin. Oy, i-memorize niyo ng kasi mag-exercise na kayo scientific name, ha?
Sa scientific name because sabi ko gahapon sa isa na there are 2 choices ang mga valid and the other one is invalid.
Either italic or underline lang. Yeah, walay both. Sa exam gabon? Seryoso, di teka. Pero ano, dapat ano na siya eh, goal. So, no, either underline na, but not bold. Then we said, this one is again. Based on my local knowledge, dapat ano lang, italic or underline, but not bold. Namali lang siguro. Sige, ikaw na lang. Pareha pang may question pa ba, no, nga, kung bagong panganak ang baboy, so unsa ang pwede niya maging sakit? Sa answer ato. Nga nagkatawa ko kay nice choice kay anorexia. Sa tanan ba yung baboy pag yung magka-anorexia, no? Unsa answer ato na remember ninyo? Of course, dili anorexia ang answer, no? So, i-check lang nato, makamachat na nato si sir through the GC, the private or yung isa. No? And, or i-search ninyo sa Google. Naka-online man ko karon. Unsa ganito? Scientific name, how to write. Underline or italic. The correct way to write scientific name. And take note ha, isa pa, ang letter L ni Linnaeus is not italic. Hindi siya kasali sa italize. Hindi siya kasali sa italize. So let's kani-kanina source, but not all the things in the internet are true. You have to verify it. So unsa po dilahang source, diyan ako dinang parehaan ni siya o dagan siya ganun. Names of the binomial classification and the designated names are italicized. The genus name is all the specific epithet for there's no exemption to this. But they are not both, diba? So, I guess klaro naman siguro na. And actually sa UP kasi, when we had our dissertation, meron talaga kami, we really go to the National Library, National Museum. It's located in the Mount Makiling Museum. So narito ang center sa National Museum, and dito namo gina-verify ang scientific name sa crack. Like nagamit ko sa akong pomelo, no, is Citrus maxima. Daghan pag ito kay ang Citrus maxima, dili lang siya L. No, napa siya yung L. So, mo dito siya kasi ang UP is very strict with scientific name. So, gusto nila, ang ginabasihan lang nila is the scientific name registered in the Philippine National Museum. So, in ANA, and then so they are even strict, and that is what, based on my memories, ang knowledge, na hindi siya pwede both. Actually, underline is just kanang handwritten or typewritten, kasi what type sa typewriter kasi walay ko analyze dati, and when we publish books by typewriter by sa una, no? Sige, so I hope it's clear, and I will also check Sir Vincent on that. Kung kinsay kasi namali lang siya or basig na yung nagtuloy siya, nakuha ko niya sa iya previous teacher, especially when your previous mga previous instructor are very old na mga traditional na mga instructor. Yeah, ang ilang instructor pa before, mga Spaniards pa and everything, they are very strong with their like muna na akong like kanang, di ba ato ang kanang ice is yellow, and then magkatawa ko kasi akong lolo is sa Spanish by Goan, kanang hamot gano'n na inchik ko. Tawa akong lolo is Spanish siya o gano'n. Picture. Na even akong auntie nakuha nila, na pag-amanas na ligid na ako, dili kay nanak ka, kuha ng mga ilong, di ba? Mga ilong sa Spanish, kay kuhan kayo. Kanang slender. Dili kay lapan nga mamurag palwa. So, ang ilahang inistoryahan akong lola is, ang yellow nila is jello. Diba? Katawanan kayo. Para po ng zero is zero. Oo. Kasi you remember, 300 years ba yan pag decolonize sa Spain? No? And when I went to Spain, exactly, mo ilahang the ways na ang jello is the ice. And the zero is zero. Oo, tinuod juday na. Yeah, kasi lahang mga Bisaya terms na to, like lamesa, kutsara, those are Spanish terms. Kisay Chabacano diri taga Zamboanga, kisay taga Zamboanga diri. O nakaadto nagsamboanga. O nakailag Chabacano. Di ba Ola Buena na sila? Buenos dias. Adora. So some other question before we proceed. Okay. So okay na to siya. I-flash na ako, ha? Then ano na say? Kasi kanina nagpangutana mo, di ba? Labana, sugar apple, atis, or anunas, komosa. So tanang mga anunas say, ano na po na ng family name? Ano na morikatak, labana, and so on. And then palm or say, of course, digin mo kalimot mag-focus mo sa tira, diba? Pero ang oil palm is, Elaeis guineensis. Camphor, anato, or let's take pizza over there. Kapok. So magka-familiar lang actually ang kapok on durian. Bombaceae. Dorias zibitenos, di ba? Mo din yung mga scientific name na hindi na ako makalimpan. Mur. Si Mur po ang dalawa. Borsceraceae. Tapos Canarium ubato. Papaya, dali na kayo. And mangosteen. Sige, yun sa'yo scientific name. Very good. Ha? MX3. So, kato, ang kabalong euphoritis na asan ako? Okay. So, kani, mabolo, see. Buhi gyapon ni kaayo na gigan pa sa napagyapon sa Mampising. Grabe siya. Nakakita na mo ani? O di ba lami kay siya kaunon katol kayo? Na. Tang or rubber euphorbiaceae. Gaya brasiliensis. Ito yung ano. Eh, dapat magpaano. Japanese name. Kabalo mo? Cinnamon. Camellia bro. Avocado daw be? Barcia American. Camachile. Pichalobium booth. Sharo, tamarind. Ay, very good. Or indica. Pwede na. Kasi wala. So, under Miliaceae, kapamilya ra siya sa santol. Ano sa santol? Very good. So, morning breadfruit, no, kanina? So, puro niya siya Artocarpus, ka-family ng jackfruit. Ay, siya raw sa banana. Musa. Depende sa variety, no? Or acuminata kung Cavendish. Then, pag double A, Lakatan, Señorita. Then, triple A, Cavendish, and Granite of Michael. And pag Saba or Cardava, Guava. Wow, very good. Buhat. Makopa. Sisgyong siya na, usually. Tambis. So, sisgyong siya, usually. Pagka-family lang ang guava sa makopa o tambis. Sa orchidaceae naman, vanilla sa vanilla paniflora. Kani, kamyas. Katilaw na mo kamyas. Kamis jud kay siya. Ka-family siya sa star fruit. Pero, Averoa siya ha, and passion fruit. Passiflora idolis. Diba? Ang ingon nila, ang passion fruit has the nicest flower daw, the most beautiful flower. Kani mo ning granadilla. Pepper. Kani pomegranate or granata. Morning kuan sa shampoo, diba? So other family roses say apple or pears, magka-family ramos sila. Pati sa almonds and strawberry. Best lang. Daghan na ba na, ma'am? O, diba? Or Arabica or Excelsa. So, kailan na mo sa difference sa tulo? Asa diri ang robusta? Asa mas dagko? Robusta, Arabica, Excelsa. Pero asa mas high yielding? Oh, very good. So, unsa ang Excelsa? Wala lang. Okay, si Sir JP ane. Ha, wala ka kabalo? Robusta ang pinaka, ang dagkong katong ano ba, coffee. But ang high yielding, mo ganing, katong mag, anong tami sa may Carmel? Mag extension, ano sila, kape do, ilaha more grab dati, and then na-fail, nawala na siya. So, yung ko sige, mag-coffee tayo siya. Ay, dimidinahan anong kape sa DA kay mga gagmay. Dagko kasi mo ang kwandari kape, robusta man ilang kape. Nya, dili daw sila gusto og ng robusta kasi ano, Arabica daw. Pero asay mas mahal na kape? Ang Excelsa? Mas mahal? Mo ba? Pero kanang Arabica, I don't know how ba si DI, pero mas mahal yun ang kape sa kuan. Kanang isa na isa sige na Milo, no? Pinakamahal. And family rota say, and then daghan po kay tag citrus ha, there are thousands of varieties of citrus. So Calamundin, Orentifolia, Latifolia, basig kani amatungnan, no? Familiarize lang. Pag lemon, limon. Pag pomelo, Citrus maxima Vermeer. So, iyon gani ko no, katong sa base sa katong National Museum, napa ni siya room, RUMPH. Kani wala na gani siya na ko gibutahan. Kulobot, kani siya, citrus hystrix, and then the mandarin, reticulata. And sweet orange, citrus, sinensis. So, ang mga sa pindasay mo ng mga rambutan, lychee, sa potasay na ma'am. Dagan kay scientific, ma'am. Manilcara, Pagchicos, and Chesopilon Paimito, Tiesa, paano mo Tiesa? Actually, natay, abyu dali, Poteria Caimito. Mani abyu, mani Tiesa, and then miracle fruit. Of course, kabalo na mo onsay Caimito, no? So, of course, sa cacao, dali ra kayo. O, diba? And tea, Camellia sinensis. Lagundi. O, diba, common kayo na? Oh, ay na naman ko dari. Great. Bata ba ko? Sa ano na siya? Gani, guwapo kayo, no? Ay! And turmeric. Okay. So, ay, napalo na ko. And then maybe vegetable na lang. Ano itong vegetable? Nawala na ka. Una, ay mga choices na scientific name. And then sa kadaghan ba naman o scientific name, no? So, vegetable is also a Latin, come from the Latin word meaning vegetabilis, animated, or vegetary, enlivened, or vegetals active. No? It's being used or recorded in 15th century pa. So, ito yung mga parang origins of various crops. And then, kanina na-discuss na natin yung classifications. Leafy, cold crops, root crops, legumes, ranaceous, cucurbits. And mga under Allium family, Amaranth, Apiaceae, Asteraceae, Brassicaceae. Cucurbitaceae, Legume, Poaceae, and Solanaceae. So this is Amaranthus viridis. Colocasia esculenta, Basilia albarugra or alubate. So cold crops, yung mga Brassicaceae natin. So these are all Brassica oleracea. Mag-batter lang siya sa variety capitata kung white cabbage or repolyo. Pero variety capitata pag red F. robra kung red cabbage. And variety sabauda kung saboy cabbage. And variety botrytis kung cauliflower. Variety italica, as I have said, Brassica oleracea na sila tanan, no? And broccoli, pag variety italica. And have you seen this one? Brussels sprouts, variety gemifera. Nabo na siya sa sa SM na supermarket. Acifala or kale. Then Brassica campestris, turnip, chinensis, mustard, pekinensis, Chinese cabbage, perviridis, mustard, Raphanus sativus, no? Lactuca sativa, lettuce, endive, Sicorium, Ipomea batatas, sweet potato. The same lang siya, no, sa swamp cabbage under family Convolvulaceae. Ipomea aquatica. Then we have cucurbits. Dapat mumordi ka karan siya. Memorize na, ha? Sayote. Itala mo snake gourd. So dapat na may mga 5 to 10 scientific names. Kani singkamas, Pachyrizos erosus. Pastilan na yun, ani nagpangalan ani, no? Piston sa tibong. Picellus vulgaris. Mung bean. Lima bean. Vigna sinensis. Yardlong bean, Vigna unguiculata. Sophocarpus tetragonolobus. Sisbania grandiflora. And mga lilies, Allium cepa, onion. Allium cepa, ang shallot pa din, but variety aggregatum. And then, Egyptian walking, Allium sativum, garlic. And leek, Allium ampelophrasum. Allium tuberosum. Allium fistulusum. And Asparagus officinalis. Of course, Agelmostus esculentus, Moringa oleifera. And sometimes yung mga common names and English name. So like, unsa ni nga banana blossom, Cardava or Cavendish. And Solanaceous, Solanum milongena, Lycopersicum esculentum, Capsicum annum, Capsicum frutescens, Solanum tuberosum, and Porcorus olitorius. Umbelliferae, Daucus caruta, Appium graveolens for celery, Petroselinum sativum, Chinese parsley, and lastly, Gingiveraceae, Gingiber officinalis. So, unsa yung scientific names na wala na mention? Siguro continue na lang ko sa ornamentals this afternoon. And we'll proceed with our exercise. Gutom na ba? So I'm going to flash different and then kaning lista kong ihatag sa inyo. Makita ba niyo? Okay, so sunod-sunod lang ka, no? Mag-mention ka scientific name lang. And then kailangan di na maulit ang scientific name. Anyway, i-flash lang man ako. Bas mag-mention naman ka any of the scientific name ba? Isa ha, kay naka-ano siya. Okay, so let's start at the back. Japet. Just mention isa and then tuloy-tuloy na non-stop ha. Then balik na po sa kay Japet after kay Ma'am Ivy. So, hindi na dapat maulit ang ma-mention ng scientific name. Pwede naman basahon. Sige, go. Ay, dili maklaro. Sorry. Maklaro. Hindi ako maklaro. Hala. Oo, maski yun sa lang. Okay, next. Next. Ikaw, kita. Or any lang, any scientific name. Na memorize din mo. O maski wala na rin. Maski yun sa lang. Sige, next. Scientific name. Ang dili ka tubag in 3 counts mo sayaw ha. 1, 2, 3. Focus na sigara. Sige, next. Mhm. Next. 1, 2, 3. Na-mention na ba siya? Wala pa, no? Sa isa, ha? Uy, crabs ta, ha? Okay, go. Carlo. Oo, basta wala na balik. Naamat. Ay, hindi mo maklaro. O, sige. Oo, pwede, Amy. Wow! Adit! Next. One, two. Next. 1, 2, 3. Sayaw na. Ano lang sa? Okay, next. May balik na. Oh, magkakanta ka, dear. Magkanta ka, ha? Ay, kisa nagbalik. Ay, ikaw. Sige. Umanon sa nato, ha? Si Bonnie. Isa to? Okay. Next. Next. Di ba ako na ang Spiros Bicolor? Mana? Isa kita nag-mention sa Spiros Bicolor. O, mana. Duha na mo. Magkuhan mo. Paro-paro G, ha? Sige, sir. Okay, so very good. So before we end, asa na itong duha? Ha? Or sayaw yung, ay, kanta yung talent? Ha? Ang sa'y talent ninyo? Ma'am, nag-review good mi ma'am nung wala good mi nagpuka. Sige, taraan ta mag-time, ha, and then we'll be back. Okay. Oras ta, sir. Mubalik, grabe po ka. 12 na takaron, and we'll be back at exactly 1 or 1:15. Okay, so wala tayong pangutana regarding classification. Okay, so familiar lang, actually, to end this morning, I know busy kayo mo, especially ng mga online, no? But make your free time as your chance na mag-study. No, mas kikapoy mo, tanawa lang inyong handout. Hopefully na print na, sir. Or online, katong ipang-send mo sa GC. No, kasi depende kasi sa inyo na iuban nga mag-prepare o papel. Diba? Mas dami pa yung balik ng papel. Na kuris-kurisan ninyo. Pati sa inyong anak, na color na tanan. But anyway, basa-basahan lang yun siya o balik, no? Mga 2 to 3 times. Maano na sa inyong utok. Absorb na. Wala, don't underestimate the power of your brain. No? Di man ninyo ma-realize na gwapo mo, pero inyong brain, ito, puro lang mong binuang ba? Pantay lang yun ta, ha? 100% passing score ba yan? So thank you very much and enjoy your lunch break. See you later. And also to our online, see you later.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you very much. If you have questions, sorry kayo, hindi na ako madungog. Kasi na may mga questions dara. Thank you po, Ma'am Belinda and Ivy. Yes, Nova, no? Naka-answer tayo ka ganina, dili nagdungan og mature ang sila ng kaso. And mag-stop na po.